Hi, I'm Soph. I'm 28 and doing well in my marketing job, and I'm married to Ihani, a great guy who's 30 and a successful software engineer. We were living our dream, or so I thought. When we first got married, I wanted to be the perfect daughter-in-law. Ihani's parents, Linda and Robert, seemed nice at first. I brought homemade pies to family dinners, helped with the dishes, and listened to Linda's long stories about her book club. But then, Linda would correct me on little things, like how to fold napkins. "Oh, Soph dear," she'd say, "that's not how we do it here." I would just smile and nod, trying to ignore it. Ihani said, "That's just how mom is. Don't take it personally." But it wasn't just the napkins. Linda had an opinion on everything: our jobs, our home, even how often we visited. One day, I told my best friend Sarah about it. "They sound like a nightmare," she said. "How does Ihani not see this?" I sighed and explained that he thought I was overreacting. Sarah said, "You need to set some boundaries." Every time I tried to talk to Ihani, he would defend his mom. "They're just trying to help," he'd say. Then came Thanksgiving. Linda called to say she would host dinner this year. "I know you offered, Soph, but you're still learning how to entertain," she said sweetly. I bit my tongue and agreed. She added, "Oh, and bring a homemade pumpkin pie, no store-bought. And please come early to help set up." I hung up, feeling angry. Ihani walked in and asked what was wrong. I hesitated but finally said, "It's just Linda's demands and constant criticism. I feel like nothing I do is good enough." Ihani sighed. "She's just old-fashioned, Soph. It's her way of caring." I couldn't believe it. "Caring? She makes me feel terrible half the time." "Let's not fight about this. It's just one dinner. We'll get through it, okay?" Ihani said. I nodded, but inside, I was dreading Thanksgiving. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to be family can be the most toxic. Thanksgiving Day arrived, and Ihani and I drove to his parents' house. I held the homemade pumpkin pie, hoping it would meet Linda's high expectations. "Ready?" Ihani asked, squeezing my hand. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said, forcing a smile. We walked in, and Linda immediately spotted the pie. "Oh, Soph, you actually made it yourself? How quaint." I bit my tongue and went to the kitchen to help. During dinner, the tension was thick. Linda took a bite of my pie and made a face. "Well, it's interesting. Maybe next time you could try using a proper recipe." That was it. I'd had enough. "Linda, I followed your recipe exactly. If you don't like it, just say so instead of making these passive-aggressive comments." The table went silent. Linda's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? I'm only trying to help you improve. You clearly need it." "Help me? You've done nothing but criticize and put me down since I married Ihani." Linda gasped dramatically. "How dare you? Robert, are you hearing this?" Robert jumped in. "Now, Soph, that's no way to speak to your mother-in-law. Apologize, right now." I looked at Ihani, hoping he'd back me up, but he just stared at his plate. My voice shaking, I said, "I will not apologize for standing up for myself." Linda stood up and pointed at the door. "Get out, both of you. I won't tolerate such disrespect in my house." Finally, Ihani spoke. "Mom, come on, this is ridiculous. Don't you dare take her side." "Ihani," Linda yelled, "choose right now, us or her." Ihani looked at me, then at his parents. He stood up and took my hand. "Let's go, Soph." We drove in silence to a nearby hotel. Once we were in our room, the reality of what happened hit me, and I started crying. Ihani held me and said, "I'm so sorry, Soph. I should have stood up to them sooner." "Why didn't you?" I asked between sobs. Ihani sighed. "I guess I was in denial about how bad things had gotten. I kept hoping if we just tried harder." "Ihani, we shouldn't have to try harder. They're the problem, not us." We spent the night talking, really talking for the first time in months, about his parents, our marriage, and everything in between. "We need to set some serious boundaries," I said. "I can't keep living like this." Ihani nodded. "You're right. No more excuses. From now on, we're a team. My parents will either respect that, or they'll have to deal with the consequences." As we lay in that hotel room, I felt both sad and relieved. Sad that it had come to this, but relieved that Ihani finally understood. "What do we do now?" I asked. Ihani pulled me closer. "We start over. We'll build our own traditions, and maybe my parents will come around, but if they don't, we'll be okay." I nodded, feeling stronger than I had in months. This Thanksgiving had been a disaster, but it was also a turning point. No more pretending everything was perfect. Ihani and I decided we had enough. We cut ties with his parents and focused on rebuilding our lives, free from their toxic influence. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We found a cute little apartment across town, far from his parents' neighborhood. We spent weekends painting and decorating, making it truly our own. No Linda criticizing our color choices, no Robert making rude comments about our furniture. It felt like we could finally breathe. Work became my escape. I threw myself into my projects, and it paid off. One day, my boss called me into her office. "Soph, your performance has been outstanding. We'd like to offer you a promotion to senior marketing manager." I was over the moon. When I told Ihani, he picked me up and spun me around the living room. "I'm so proud of you, Soph," he said, smiling from ear to ear. Ihani was doing great too. He started a side project, developing an app for local businesses, and it really took off. "Babe, I just got another client," he'd shout, and we'd do our silly victory dance in the kitchen. Our relationship grew stronger, we talked more, laughed more, and it finally felt like we were a team, facing the world together. Then, about 6 months after Thanksgiving, everything changed. Ihani got a call from his mom. "What do you mean, gambling addiction?" he asked, his face going pale. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was enough to know something was wrong. Apparently, Robert had a secret gambling problem, and it had gotten out of control. They were about to lose their house. When Ihani hung up, he looked shocked. They lost everything. Soph, the house, their savings, everything. I felt a mix of emotions, shock, a little bit of satisfaction, I'm only human, and dread, because I knew what was coming. Sure enough, the next day, Linda called Ihani. He put it on speaker. "Ihani, darling," she said sweetly, "your father and I are in a bit of trouble. We were wondering if we could stay with you and Soph for a while, just until we get back on our feet. Rent-free. Of course, you wouldn't charge your own parents, would you?" Ihani looked at me, clearly torn. I don't know, Mom, we'd have to talk about it." After he hung up, Ihani turned to me. "Soph, I know things have been bad, but they're still my parents. Maybe if we help them, they'll realize how wrong they were. Maybe we can fix things." I took a deep breath. "Ihani, honey, I know you want to help, but think about everything they put us through, the criticism, the manipulation, kicking us out on Thanksgiving, and now they want to move in, rent-free?" "But they're family," he said softly. "Family doesn't treat each other the way they treated us," I replied. "If we let them move in, we'll be right back where we started. All the progress we've made, all the peace we've found, it'll be gone." Ihani was quiet for a long time, then he nodded slowly. "You're right, God, you're right. I can't believe I even thought about it. It's just, they're my parents, you know?" I hugged him tightly. "I know, babe, and it's awful that they'd put you in this position, but we need to protect ourselves, our relationship, and the life we've built. You're right, no more toxic influences. We've come too far to go back now." As we stood in our little apartment, I felt both relieved and sad. Relieved that we were sticking to our boundaries, but sad that it had come to this. Still, I knew we were making the right choice. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that help us grow the most. Ihani made the call to his parents and put it on speaker. "Mom, Dad, we've talked it over, and we can't let you move in with us," he said. Linda's voice immediately became sharp. "What? How could you do this to us? We're your parents." "I'm sorry, but it's just not possible," Ihani replied firmly. "This is all Soph's doing, isn't it?" Linda snapped. "She's turned you against us." I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Linda, this was our decision. Your behavior has consequences." "How dare you?" she screamed. "After everything we've done for you." "You mean like kicking us out on Thanksgiving?" I shot back. The call ended with Linda threatening to tell the whole family how awful we were, but we were done being manipulated. We decided to host a housewarming party, inviting extended family and friends. It was time to set the record straight. During the party, Ihani's cousin, Amy, approached me. "Hey, Soph, is it true you refused to help Linda and Robert because you're jealous of their relationship?" I was stunned. "What? No, absolutely not. Where did you hear that?" Amy looked uncomfortable. "Linda's been telling everyone that you're trying to come between them and Ihani." That was the last straw. I gathered everyone's attention. "I need to clear something up," I said. "Linda and Robert have been spreading lies about us. I told them everything, the constant criticism, the Thanksgiving disaster, the manipulation." Ihani chimed in, explaining more about his dad's gambling addiction. The room fell silent. Then, Ihani-san spoke up. I always thought Linda exaggerated about you, Soph. I'm so sorry we believed her." As the party continued, more family members came up to us, apologizing and sharing their own stories of Linda's manipulation. A week later, we got a call from Ihani's cousin. "You won't believe this," she said. "Linda and Robert are being evicted. Turns out Robert owes money to some shady people, and they might even face legal trouble." Ihani sighed. "Part of me feels guilty," he said. I squeezed his hand. "We can't set ourselves on fire to keep them warm. They made their choices." That evening, we reaffirmed our commitment to each other and the boundaries we had set. No more toxic influences, no more manipulation. Meanwhile, Ihani and I were thriving. My career was taking off, and Ihani's app business was booming. We even started talking about having kids. One night, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, Ihani turned to me and said, "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for that Thanksgiving disaster. It opened my eyes. It was hard, but look at us now, we're stronger because of it. No more pretending everything's perfect, just us, building our life on our terms." As the sun set and the sky darkened, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Our story wasn't about revenge, it was about standing up for ourselves, setting boundaries, and choosing happiness. Sometimes, the best way to move forward is simply by living well. Now that our story is over, I have a question for you. Was I wrong to refuse to help my in-laws, even after everything they put us through, despite their serious financial troubles? Where do you draw the line between family loyalty and taking care of yourself? Should we always help family, no matter how toxic they've been? Or is it okay to protect our own mental health and happiness? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in this situation? If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything to me and helps me keep sharing real-life experiences. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.
You can't possibly handle a divorce. Grace, my sister-in-law, looked down on me with a mocking laugh. Anyway, cool your head. My husband Matthew, face red with anger, was shouting, spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and my sister. If you don't want to, we're getting a divorce. I had been waiting for these words. Fine, it's a divorce then. You're okay with that, right? I endured insults and scorn to draw out these words. All the evidence is in place. Saying those words, you've doomed yourself to hell. My name is Zoe. A 29-year-old housewife with no children. I used to work at a clothing manufacturer, but quit 3 years ago after getting married, and now I sew as a hobby. Matthew is 32, sweated it out in the rugby team during college, and got a job at a major housing manufacturer through rugby connections. His body is imposing in every dimension, giving off an intimidating presence. If I so much as talk back or display more knowledge than Matthew, he instantly gets moody and starts lecturing. Now, all I think about is how to live without upsetting Matthew. Additionally, the silent pressure from not having children weighs on me from Matthew and the in-laws. Yesterday, Grace got divorced. Grace got divorced. I could picture Grace's sharp-featured, stern face. Is that so? It was expected. I couldn't imagine Grace's intense personality sustaining a marriage for long. Not much of a reaction from you. Matthew glared at me. It's not that, I was too shocked to speak. I wonder if I managed to hide my lack of surprise. Thinking it was inevitable she'd get divorced would surely lead to trouble later. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Almost dropped the cup I was holding. That was a close one. I managed to deflect. Otherwise, I would have been in for a lecture. Matthew's typical lectures began to fill my head. The toilet was dirty. The rice was hard. You don't work, so you should at least take care of the house more carefully. His go-to line was always, "Who do you think is feeding you?" Matthew never laid a hand on me. Instead, he chipped away at my spirit with his words. Having children might change things, but there's no sign of that happening yet. I've decided to do it. Matthew looked at me irritably. Oops. I must have missed what he said. I'm sorry. The shock made me zone out. Not again, hopefully, it won't lead to a lecture. So, Grace's husband Paul cheated on her. He even canceled the lease on the apartment Dad and Mom also lived in and moved out alone. Matthew continued speaking. Seems he's in a good mood. I couldn't believe the always smiling and kind Paul could cheat. It'd be more believable if Grace were the one cheating. Divorce papers were forced on her, she's really down. Being a housewife, she has no income and is struggling. How about alimony or child support? If it's a divorce due to cheating, she should be able to divide the property and claim alimony and child support. There's no way she could get that. Matthew slammed his fist on the table. I involuntarily tensed up. Don't act so high and mighty, you couldn't possibly understand all that. Stop talking like you know everything. You're not smart enough to think about such complicated things. My mouth was dry and I couldn't speak. All you do is sit at the sewing machine all day. Such a demeaning way to talk about my passion is too cruel. I could never say this face to face, but sewing is my only hobby and passion. Recently, the dresses I've made have been well received, and some people have even expressed interest in buying them. Poor Harper too, she's only 7, doesn't understand what her dad did. And my parents too, I wonder what they'll do. Matthew seems to be in a good mood, not in lecture mode. Can't we do something for them? Well, I'll go take a bath for now. I need to prepare Matthew's change of clothes. If there's no new clothes ready after his bath, it'll spoil his mood. I'll go to my sister's place tomorrow. I couldn't imagine the always gentle Paul cheating. He always seemed to be at Grace's beck and call. Joseph and Olivia were tough on Paul, too. Maybe that's why he cheated. But he always seemed so kind to the children. It's natural to think custody of Harper will go to Grace. Considering Harper is in the lower grades of elementary school, her future struggles come to mind. But if the affair is true, she could get compensation and child support. Why was he so angry about it? I can never tell where his boiling point really is. It's truly exhausting to always talk in fear. The next day, Matthew brought up the same topic as yesterday. We really should do something to help. What does he mean by something? A question pops into my head. Live together maybe? Joseph and Olivia lived with them, but it's impossible for 6 people to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. How about Grace uses our bedroom, and we let Dad and the rest use the room where you have your sewing machine? We'll figure out somewhere for us to sleep. Matthew says it so lightly, but it's impossible. I had forgotten how much Matthew loves his family. Christmas, summer vacations, everyone's birthdays, we always gather at his parents' house. I've always felt uncomfortable around Matthew's family. But to have no place to sleep and not be able to sew. Matthew slammed his fist on the table. I instinctively tensed up. This isn't the time to listen to your selfishness. Helping the family is important. Is wanting a place to sleep and to continue my only joy, sewing, really being selfish? I felt dizzy. I realized talking to him is pointless. The next day, I met with my college friend Madison at a cafe for a change of scenery. It was a long-awaited reunion, but I found myself complaining about my home life. That's definitely emotional abuse. Yeah, I thought so too, but I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I thought it was okay as long as I followed what Matthew said and didn't get yelled at. Tears started to spill. Now's not the time to cry. What you need to do is escape from there. Madison handed me her business card. It had a law firm's name and the title of legal assistant on it. After graduating from college, I went back to study and entered law school. Now, I'm working part-time at that law firm. I was surprised that Madison, who was flashy and playful in college, had become a law student. Our office has a lot of excellent lawyers who are strong in divorce cases. Could I also become free if I got away from these people? The thought lifted a weight off my shoulders, and I suddenly felt relieved. As we said goodbye, "You've endured a lot so far. You don't have to endure anymore." Madison gently patted my head. A week later, I returned from shopping to find Grace and Harper in the living room, with Matthew sitting across from them. "It's a weekday, why is Matthew here?" And Grace and her family, too. Looking curiously at Matthew. "Yeah, I left work early. It's a big deal for us, can't be working at a time like this," he said. Grace looked at me with a smug face, looking down on me. "I'm thirsty. I want peach-flavored juice." Harper asked for a drink without any hesitation. Despite being young, doesn't she know to show some restraint? "We don't have such sweet drinks since we don't have kids." "Sorry, this auntie isn't very thoughtful." Am I not thoughtful? After all the care and devotion I've shown Matthew. Being called inconsiderate made me question what my marriage has been all about. I resisted the urge to glare at Matthew. "Hurry up and bring some water." Prompted by Matthew, I hurried to get water. "It's a bit old and small, but it looks like we can manage," Grace muttered, mocking our home. "It may be old, but it's renovated and very comfortable for me." What an attitude. "Mom, where's my room?" Harper unabashedly spoke to her mom, Grace. I was taken aback by Harper's words. "A room? What does she mean?" "This place is too small, you'll have to bear with it." What is this all about? I have a bad feeling about this. I don't know where to start, and I can't find the words to respond. Grace is having a tough time right now. It's difficult to work when Harper is still in elementary school. Of course, it's tough. Especially with Grace's selfish nature. It's sad she was cheated on and kicked out of her house. But I don't think it's up to us to take on all of that. Paul is the one at fault. What baffles me is why Grace isn't demanding alimony and child support from Paul. With alimony and child support, the Grace family shouldn't have to live like this. So, I've decided we'll support Grace along with Dad and Mom. Support? Did Matthew just say we're going to support Grace and her family? What does that mean? Oh, I see, they'll live here for a while until they find a place of their own. I realize it's just Matthew's unique way of expressing his love for his family. Please, take care of us. I find myself asking almost pleadingly. Yes, make yourself at home. Grace crosses her arms and looks down on me. It's as if I'm the one asking them to stay. There's some cleaning up to do around the house, so the move will be at the end of the month. With that, their arrival here is confirmed. Zoe, make sure you clear out the room by then. Though it was unbearable to give up my sewing, my hobby, or rather my reason for living, I told myself it was only for a short while. I had planned to send my belongings back to my parents' house for storage, but Matthew's next words left me shocked. Why don't you just get rid of that sewing machine and those clothes? That sounds like a good idea. It will make our lives easier. I was speechless. To think my only hobby was regarded so lightly. I felt as if not just my personality, but my entire life was being denied. After calming down, I noticed 4 half-drunk glasses left on the table. It seems Grace and her family didn't bother to clean up before they left. Matthew, meanwhile, was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with his mobile phone. I'm going out for a bit. Matthew left the house with an unusually cheerful demeanor. Was he that happy about the idea of living with his entire family? Meanwhile, I felt like I couldn't stand this life anymore. I picked up my mobile phone and made a call. As scheduled, Grace and her family moved in at the end of the month. "Give me a hand, will you? There's so much stuff." When I went to the entrance, Matthew was there holding a cardboard box, with Grace and Harper wearing a backpack behind him. "Welcome, or should I say, welcome back." Matthew, as if to say hurry up and help, shoved a box into my hands. "There's more, so please hurry and bring them in." Grace and Harper walked past me, who was frozen in place with the box, and entered the house. "Zoe, did you manage to clear out the room?" "Yes, I sent the sewing machine and the clothes I made to my parents' house the other day." I tried to sound as sarcastic as possible, but I wonder if it got through. I had asked my parents to carefully store them, as I would definitely need them later. "Mom, where's my room?" Harper innocently asked Grace the same question as before. With 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, how could they possibly arrange a separate room for a child? "Sorry, but my room will be for Joseph and Olivia, so we can't provide a separate room for Harper." "Grandpa and Grandma's room, huh? That's annoying," Harper muttered as she passed by me. The thought of living together like this weighed heavily on me. Is this how all kids are these days? Grace, sitting in the living room, said, "I'm tired, Zoe. Can you get me something to drink?" Demanding like a queen. "I want something too. Peach juice would be nice." I realized I was still frozen in the entrance and headed back to the living room. "Come on, don't just stand there. We didn't have peach juice. I got grape juice instead, is that okay?" "Huh? Why?" "I told you last time. You're useless." Harper criticized me with language that seemed too mature for an elementary school student. I nearly blurted out, "Is that the only way you can talk?" But I desperately held it back. "Couldn't you have just ordered it online?" Grace, far from apologizing for her daughter's rudeness, added her own criticism. I concluded to myself, like mother, like daughter. "I'm sorry, this is all we have." "What?" Harper voices her displeasure without any reservation. "Well, can't be helped. Harper, just bear with it." "Zoe, what are you doing? Hurry up and help." At that moment, Matthew's loud voice came from the entrance. "Yes, I'm coming now." Not wanting to upset anyone in Grace's presence, I hurried to the entrance. Finally, we managed to bring all the cardboard boxes inside. As I was unpacking and arranging Grace's belongings, Joseph and his family arrived. "We'll be in your care." "So, where's our room?" This man isn't a bad person, but I wonder if lack of restraint runs in their blood. "Since we're at it, how about we order some steaks?" "Zoe, call the steakhouse for us." I sigh internally. Surely, he intends to pay for this with the savings I had before we got married. And he dares talk about supporting them? As everyone gathers in the living room to eat the steaks, Matthew solemnly declares, "This is a new start for our family." Everyone, except me, nods in agreement. "Indeed, let's keep up the good work." Joseph, with a steak in front of him, seems to be in a good mood, smiling. "So, do you have any idea where you'll live next?" My question wipes the smile off Matthew's face. Great, I've upset him again. "What are you talking about? We're living together here at least until Harper is grown up." My world goes dark at his words. "That's right, we're going to live here forever." Grace says it as if it's the most natural thing, but is it really? "Our family is in trouble, can you just leave them be?" I can't see why we need to take care of them until Harper grows up. "Listen, I'm the head of this household. It's natural for me to decide who we support and who lives with us." So what am I? Your housekeeper? Besides, when we have kids, Grace will help with the childcare. This is for your own good. For my good? That's a classic line of moral harassment. That's what Madison had said when we met last time. I searched for an opportunity to retort, waiting for the right words. Why do we need Grace to raise them? I want to raise my own children. Why? Because Zoe, you want to work outside, right? Then work, I'll take care of them. I'll be the big sister, right? Harper answers with a smug look, raising questions about entrusting childcare to Grace, who raised such an unempathetic and graceless child. Right, if you work outside, it'll help with the finances, and it's good for you to get out, too. Matthew claps his hands joyfully. Yeah, support us with the money you earn. Grace stares at me with a devilish grin. I'll be grateful to have extra money besides my pension. Even Joseph looks forward to living off my earnings. What kind of family is this? Anyway, it's decided. I no longer have the energy to argue. Just say those words already. No, I can't take this. I mutter faintly. Matthew slams his fist on the table. My body reflexively wants to move, but I restrain myself. If you don't like it, then it's divorce. Divorce is the only option. I had been waiting for those words. Fine, divorce it is. You're okay with that, right? Matthew seems taken aback, not expecting me to agree to a divorce. He swallows his breath. Don't joke with me. You want a divorce? Were you always this cold-hearted? Joseph and Olivia look on in shock at Matthew and me. You can't possibly handle a divorce. Grace looks down on me, laughing mockingly. Cool your head. Matthew, red-faced, yells with spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and sister. If you don't want to, it's a divorce. What? But we're already divorced? What? Everyone is shocked by my declaration. That's right, we're already divorced. I pull out a copy of the divorce papers. But look, Matthew's signature isn't here. Without it, the divorce isn't valid, right? It's a court divorce. The papers have been filed with the court. You, naive as you are, couldn't possibly have managed that. Who's behind this? The sound of Matthew slamming his fist on the table echoes through the room, but I'm no longer surprised. I came up with everything myself. I asked a lawyer to handle the procedures, though. What nonsense are you spouting? You, of all people, you. Matthew is so flustered he doesn't know what to say. First off, Grace, you weren't cheated on, you were the one who cheated, right? Paul told me everything. Joseph glares at Grace. What's this all about? Everyone's gaze shifts to Grace. Paul gave up on reconciling after finding out Harper was the child of Grace's affair. It's not true, my sister's not at fault. Matthew hastily tries to defend her. Matthew, why are you defending her? Do you have something to hide? Matthew shakes his head frantically. I checked your credit cards. You might have taken the debit and cash cards from me, thinking you're managing everything, but the credit cards and the mobile phone contracts are all under my name since before we got married. So what? We're married, so it's our money. It's none of your business what I use it for. Then what about these frequent visits to hotels in the downtown area? I place the usage statement on the table. That's for work meetings. What about these luxury bags and wallets on the credit card statements? Did you squander money on some girl at a hostess bar? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not the type to be played. I'm in a serious relationship. I can't help but laugh at Matthew's foolish admission. Pride and stupidity make a dangerous combination. Grace looks at Matthew with a pale face.
You just admitted to cheating.
Joseph and Olivia seem disillusioned, their shoulders slumping.
There's more, including call records. The other party has admitted to the affair. No wonder I couldn't reach them.
Suddenly, Matthew stands up and tries to grab me by the collar. You better stop. Everything's been recorded and filmed. Matthew looks around and spots the mobile phone placed unnaturally. His momentum wanes, and he slumps back into his chair.
Your outing after Grace and her family visited the apartment was to see that woman, wasn't it?
Matthew seems to have lost the will to fight back. The story goes back 2 days. I had visited Madison to get a lawyer's advice. The lawyer said Matthew's actions were clear moral harassment, suggesting a codependent relationship. I was advised to separate from Matthew as soon as possible. First, we needed evidence, so I showed the credit card statements and call records. The lawyer,
the man is quite the fool, isn't he?
Laughed. I also played recordings of conversations, as suggested by Madison. There's no way you can't get a divorce with this. And he's been eating through your finances. According to the lawyer, I could claim a significant compensation from Matthew. Let's kick them out of the apartment as well. Madison encouraged me.
Let's do it thoroughly.
With a mischievous grin, I nodded firmly to their words. And now, with the help of a lawyer and a friend, I'm confronting Matthew and his family. This isn't the end. Matthew doesn't seem to have the energy to respond anymore.
You won't be able to stay in this apartment either.
Grace reacts the most to this.
Why? Matthew bought this apartment, didn't he?
That's when the lawyer steps in. Please, go ahead, counselor. The lawyer, who had been waiting at the entrance, comes into the living room. Let me explain. This apartment was jointly purchased by Matthew and Zoe. Zoe owns half of it. Moreover, Zoe is refusing to pay any more of the mortgage. Then Matthew should just pay for it. You can do that much, can't you, Matthew? Grace apparently hasn't given up on living here yet.
It'll be tough but doable.
Indeed, for Matthew, doubling the loan payments would be tough. What about the distribution of property to Zoe? Zoe's share will be paid in cash.
There's no way I have that kind of money.
Grace started crying, shaking Matthew's shoulder. Figure something out. You're the one who said to leave it to you. That woman is easy, just does whatever I say. And yet, this is the mess we're in? I handed Grace a document. There's compensation for Grace. It's all detailed in there. Grace looked at the document and collapsed right there. I had asked the lawyer to also request compensation for Paul. As for Grace's compensation, we'll discuss it separately. If Matthew's compensation isn't paid in one lump sum, we're considering garnishing wages from his company.
No way!
Matthew could only scratch his head and sob. Matthew will also be requesting compensation from the other woman. Suddenly, Matthew lifted his head, looking desperate. Please, not that. I beg you, please. Matthew pleaded earnestly, apologizing deeply. It didn't seem sane at all. If she finds out, I won't be able to live. He was rubbing his face, covered in snot and tears, against the floor. It was the first time I saw Matthew lose it like this, but I didn't feel a speck of sympathy or pity.
Let's go, lawyer. Since that's the situation, it's better for everyone to find a new place to live soon.
I left the apartment with a smile, glancing at Matthew crouching on the floor. Eventually, the divorce with Matthew was settled through mediation, not court. Joseph, Olivia, and Grace seem to have started living in a cramped, old apartment. Joseph directs traffic at road construction, while Olivia and Grace assemble parts at a nearby factory, managing somehow to make ends meet. Thanks to that, Paul has safely received his compensation. Matthew's affair was with the wife of his boss, who is also a senior in the rugby club. A betrayal in a company with strict hierarchies. The boss refuses to let him resign, seemingly determined to torment him for life. No wonder Matthew apologized. From now on, he'll continue to be a slave to his senior. I moved to a new apartment and am thoroughly enjoying my hobby of sewing. The dresses I sell online are popular, and I've been approached by a major select shop wanting to do business. Recently, a young buyer who really liked my clothes suggested starting a company together to make clothes on a more formal basis. I'm seriously considering getting involved, having been asked with such enthusiasm. I've also been invited to dinner by him, thinking this person with slightly droopy eyes and a kind look might be someone I can feel safe with. Until recently, I couldn't have imagined feeling so refreshingly happy, so I'm surprised at myself for being able to enjoy life this way. My mobile phone is vibrating, a call from him. I need to reply to his dinner invitation today. You cold? Rebecca, my son's wife, asked with a gentle voice.
Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit chilly. Maybe it's the fever.
I had been suffering from a high fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit since the morning. Then you might want to put on something warmer. I have some old winter clothes I don't need anymore in the closet. Wear those, sweat a lot, and get your fever down, okay? Saying that, Rebecca went to get an old jacket of hers and came back to put it on me.
Thank you. Rebecca.
No need. Linda, you're a Timothy's important mother, you and also an important mother to me. And if you have something to cool my head, please. You must be cold? So, I'll turn on the heating for you. With those words, Rebecca closed the door of the room and went somewhere.
Did Rebecca say something strange at the end, or was it my misunderstanding?
Feeling a bit odd, it took some time for me to think clearly through my dazed consciousness.
Turn on the heating, surely not.
Before I knew it, the room had become as hot as if I were in a sauna. I was desperately looking for the air conditioner remote.
Why can't I find the remote anywhere?
Trying to leave the room in a hurry, the door wouldn't open. No matter how many times I threw my weakened body against the door, it wouldn't budge.
Rebecca, open this door. This prank has gone too far. This is way over the line. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hey, are you listening?
Eventually, my consciousness began to fade, and I collapsed to the floor. As my consciousness faded, my hand unconsciously grabbed my mobile phone.
Anyone, please, help!
My name is Linda, 43 years old. I married earlier than most of my friends and had my eldest son, Timothy, at the age of 20. However, my husband died in an unexpected accident. Raising a child as a single mother was not easy, and I was willing to take any job I could, eventually finding employment at a certain company. Eventually, I realized that the work environment was extremely harsh, but I continued to work for over 20 years with the thought, until Timothy can stand on his own. Now, Timothy is living away from home in a condominium, enjoying his newlywed life with a woman he met at a party, named Rebecca. Feeling relieved by my son's independence and perhaps because the long-standing tension had finally snapped, I ended up breaking down physically and had no choice but to quit the company I had served for over 20 years. You've always worked hard for my sake, Mom. Maybe it's time you started living for yourself? Timothy said this, but having worked for the sake of my family for so many years, the idea of living for myself was somewhat foreign to me. After much thought, the answer I came to was, maybe I should try working a bit more? However, I was done with the harsh working conditions of the past, so I decided to opt for a part-time job that would allow me to work at my own pace and during hours I preferred. I thought it would be fine as long as I found a new goal while working part-time, without any rush. Then, until your life stabilizes, you can stay at my condo for a while. There's a spare bedroom that's vacant, intended for friends who come to stay over.
Your condo, wouldn't I be a bother?
A bother? No way. I am what I am today because of you, Mom. If I can repay you, I wouldn't consider it a bother at all. I felt resistant to moving into my newlywed son and his wife's condominium.
Wouldn't Rebecca mind?
I think it'll be fine. She's a good person, so I'm sure she'll get along with you, Mom.
Then I'll take you up on that offer. I'll find a stable job and move out as soon as I can.
No rush, Mom. Go at your own pace. It worries me more as your son if you rush and get sick again. Thus began my life living with my son and his wife. Rebecca, my son's wife, greeted me with a warm smile. I've cleaned up your room, washed the bed sheets, too. You can put your luggage in the bedroom and relax, maybe watch some TV for now.
Thank you. But being treated so kindly makes me feel even more guilty about imposing.
I'm still far from a perfect wife and have so much to learn. If it's okay with you, Linda, please teach me.
Sure. Looking forward to it, Rebecca.
Watching our exchange, Timothy smiled. See? Just like I said, right? I felt a surge of excitement, sensing that Rebecca and I would get along just fine. However, about a month later, as I tried to leave my bedroom, the door wouldn't open properly, as if something was blocking it. Wondering if it was a problem with the door fitting or perhaps the wood had swollen from humidity, I pushed the door open with force, only to find a mountain of laundry piled up.
What on earth is this?
I was at a loss for words at the sight of the laundry carelessly piled up in the hallway. Then, Rebecca's voice came from the direction of the living room. Linda, I've let the laundry pile up, so could you please do it? Rebecca said this while lounging on the sofa, munching on snack foods and watching TV.
If you wanted it done, you could have just asked. Why did you have to dump it in the hallway?
I thought it would be more noticeable and easier for you to see that way. I clearly felt this was a form of harassment. On another day, as Rebecca was engrossed in a video game in the living room, I kindly offered, I can teach you some of Timothy's favorite recipes. Would you like to help me cook tonight? Rebecca clicked her tongue annoyingly and said,
Don't bother me now. I'm at a good part. Ah, you made me mess up. Your mere presence is annoying.
Ever since I moved into the condominium, I had never once seen Rebecca cook anything resembling a meal. When I asked why she didn't cook, Rebecca said with a straight face, because it's a hassle. When asked how they managed their meals until now, she said, I asked Timothy to pick up frozen food or fast food from the grocery store on his way home from work, and also snacks and drinks. I wondered if this couple always lived on such a diet. Opening the refrigerator, I found it devoid of any real food ingredients. I'm not interested in cooking. If you want to do it, then go ahead. But every time I tried to involve Rebecca in cooking.
Stop nagging. I'm letting you stay here for free, so don't complain. I thought you were going to do the housekeeping, that's why I let you stay. If you're going to keep bothering me and Timothy, why don't you just leave?
It seemed she felt I was intruding on her newlywed life with Timothy. Having been told that, I couldn't argue, as it was an undeniable fact. You're right. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I never intended to be a burden or get in your way. Please understand that. Although Rebecca spoke to me arrogantly when we were alone, as soon as Timothy returned home from work.
Listen, Linda is going to teach me how to cook Timothy's favorite dishes. I'll try making them sometime, so look forward to it.
She smiled at me with a forced cheerfulness, and I smiled back silently.
You two really get along well. It looks like the typical MIL and DIL conflict doesn't apply here.
Timothy laughed heartily, oblivious to the reality.
And look at the laundry and how much cleaner the room is. I did all that. Linda made it easy to understand. Wow, you are like a model housewife.
In reality, I had done everything myself, while Rebecca had merely lounged on the sofa. Despite my position as a dependent, I couldn't bring myself to reveal Rebecca's true nature to Timothy. One day, this life continued for a while. From the moment I woke up that morning, I felt a pain in my head. Normally, my body would start moving at a certain time, but on this day, it seemed like it was refusing to move. There was this peculiar sensation as if my body was softly floating in the air, and just by taking a single step out of bed, I felt incredibly exhausted. It didn't take long for me to realize this was due to a fever. When I checked with a thermometer, it read 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
I wonder if I've caught a cold.
Reflecting on the previous day, I remembered that Rebecca had asked me to go shopping at the supermarket near the station. On my way back, it suddenly started raining, and I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't think Rebecca would bring one to me if I asked, so I waited for the rain to stop. Then, I received a message from Rebecca. Come back now. Taking a taxi wasn't an option due to financial constraints, and since the condo wasn't too far from the station, I foolishly thought I could just run back. Upon arriving and asking Rebecca what was the matter,
I ordered takeout, and the delivery person should be arriving soon. I really prefer not to deal with people, so Linda, could you pay for it instead?
I had been made to run in the rain just for that. It was clear to me what had caused my cold. Somehow managing to get up and make my way to the living room with heavy steps, Rebecca was sprawled in her usual spot on the sofa.
Linda, the laundry has piled up, so could you take care of it?
I leaned against the wall. Rebecca, I'm sorry, but could you take care of your own things today?
Linda, what's wrong with you? Your face is all red.
It seems I've caught a cold. I'll be resting in my room for today.
That's going to be a problem. An auntie just lying around sick is nothing but a nuisance to us.
Even if you say that, there's nothing I can do if my body won't cooperate.
Your body won't cooperate. But you walked all the way here, didn't you? That means you can move if you try a little harder. Also, I haven't had breakfast yet, so please take care of that. And like I said before, don't forget the laundry. If you could, please clean the room too.
Rebecca's commands relentlessly pierced my aching head.
And if Linda really can't stand anymore, you can rest in your room, but only after you've prepared my lunch, okay?
Without the energy to argue and my mind barely functioning, I silently carried out Rebecca's orders. I prepared breakfast for her, made lunch in advance, started the laundry, and cleaned the floors.
Could you move, please? Linda, you're in the way, and I can't see the TV at all. What do you think I am? I'm not a robot.
The emotions I usually kept deep inside burst out, as if propelled by the high fever.
I can see you're not a robot. After all, a cleaning robot wouldn't be in the way, wouldn't complain, and would be much more useful than you.
I was about to retort, but before I could, all strength left my body, and I collapsed to the floor. Yet, Rebecca remained motionless, not moving an inch from the sofa, continuing to watch TV. When the laundry machine signaled its cycle had ended, I somehow managed to hang the laundry on the balcony, feeling like I could collapse at any moment.
Rebecca,
I've prepared your lunch, so I'm going to rest until the evening. Okay. Make sure you go quickly once you're done. I don't want to catch a cold from you. I had no energy left to respond to her words. As I was drifting off to sleep after crawling into bed. Linda, are you okay? Rebecca entered the bedroom. I had already made lunch for her. What more could she possibly want?
Aren't you cold?
For once, she seemed to be showing concern for me.
Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit chilly. Maybe it's because of the fever.
In my weakened state, I mistook her malicious intent for genuine kindness.
Then you might want to dress more warmly. Oh, right. I have some old winter clothes I don't need anymore in the closet. Wear those, sweat a lot, and lower your fever, okay?
Saying that, Rebecca brought an old jacket of hers and put it on me. Thank you. You're surprisingly thoughtful. Not at all. Timothy's important mother is also important to me. And if you have something to cool my head, please. Whether Rebecca responded to my last request or not. You must be cold, Linda? So, I'll turn on the heating for you. With those words, Rebecca closed the bedroom door and left.
Did Rebecca say something strange at the end, or was it just a slip of the tongue?
Despite my unease, it took a while for my foggy consciousness to reach a logical conclusion.
Turning on the heating, surely not.
Before I knew it, sweat was pouring out of every pore. But the real problem was that the room had become as hot as if I were in a sauna.
This prank has gone way too far. If I had realized any later, I might have been in real danger.
While venting my anger, I desperately searched for something.
Why can't I find the remote anywhere?
It seemed that Rebecca had not only set the air conditioner to heating mode, but had also taken the remote out of the room. I tried to leave the room, but for some reason, the door wouldn't open.
What's going on? What do you find enjoyable about doing this?
No matter how many times I threw my weakened body against the door, it wouldn't budge.
Rebecca! Open this door! This is too much!
Eventually, my consciousness began to fade, and I collapsed to the floor. As my consciousness faded, my hand unconsciously grabbed my mobile phone.
Anyone, please, help!
I wasn't aware of where my fingers had slid, but soon I heard a ringtone from the other side, followed by a man's voice.
Linda? What's going on? It's not like you to call me. Hello? Linda? Are you there?
Whose voice is that?
It's me, Andrew. We were in the same class in high school.
Andrew? Andrew, help me.
It sounds like you're in serious trouble. Where are you? Tell me your location.
Somehow, amidst my barely functioning brain, I managed to convey my current address and apartment number.
What's happened? Linda! Linda!
Andrew's yelling voice gradually faded away. The next time I regained consciousness.
What the hell is this? It's in the way.
The sound of a large object being kicked and knocked over echoed on the flooring, and then Andrew burst through the door.
Andrew! Linda! It's like a sauna in here. How did this happen? You're severely dehydrated, but don't worry, I'll take care of you now.
Then he called out towards the entrance.
Hey, could I get some help here, please?
The manager rushed into the room, and upon seeing my weakened state and the condition of the bedroom.
How could this happen?
He stood there in shock, as if seeing something unbelievable.
Manager, don't just stand there in a daze. Bring some water. Ah. Yes.
Just then, an oblivious Rebecca returned home and showed her face.
Who are you? And why is the manager here too? I don't have time to explain to you. What do you think you're doing, barging into someone's apartment like this? I'm calling the police. Go ahead and call if you want. Before that, I'm taking her to the hospital. I'm her high school classmate. I rushed over here after she called me, and this is what I found. What did you do to her? I didn't do anything strange. I just thought she said she was feeling cold.
Rebecca kept repeating her excuses, her face pale, but Andrew, rejecting all her words, said,
Move, you're in the way.
Several days after the incident, having fully recovered, I decided to meet Andrew in the hospital's cafe to express my gratitude for his help. I don't remember much due to my delirious state at the time, but according to the doctors and nurses who treated me, Andrew was wearing an expensive suit. Although I don't know what kind of job he has, considering his earnest and justice-filled personality and appearance, there's no doubt he's competent in his work. Hey, Linda. Glad to see you're looking much better. Today, he was dressed in casual clothes, likely because it was his day off, but still, there was a sense of luxury about him.
Thank you for the other day. I was saved because you rushed over. If you hadn't come at that time, I can't imagine what might have happened to me.
Andrew, perhaps not wanting to worry me, flashed a bright, white smile.
But I was honestly surprised to get a call from you that day. The last time we met was at our high school graduation, right? Was it? It's been that long since we last met.
Yeah. You never showed up at any reunions.
That's right. I've been busy with work.
Someone mentioned at the reunion that you've been a single mother all this time. It must have been tough with work. But now I'm living with my son and his wife in their condominium. I'm repaying a debt of gratitude.
I see. But how did you end up in that situation in the condominium? It wasn't just an accident, was it?
I hesitated about how much to divulge to an old classmate I hadn't seen in years. Yet, owing him a debt of gratitude, I decided it was best to tell him everything, holding nothing back. After listening to everything about my interactions with Rebecca, Andrew nodded slowly. Then, let me tell you everything I saw that day. With that, he began to recount in detail how he ended up at the scene that day and what he witnessed. He had been driving back to work after a meeting when he was startled by my call, prompting him to change his destination immediately. However, upon arriving at the condominium, the door was equipped with an auto-lock system, preventing easy access by outsiders. At that point, Andrew declared it an emergency situation and explained the circumstances to the manager to have the door opened.
When I entered the room, I was shocked. The first thing that caught my eye was a storage shelf placed unnaturally in front of one of the room's doors. And from the gap under the door, I could feel an intense heat. That's when I knew something was wrong.
A storage shelf? So Rebecca went that far. He handed me a business card. Upon reading the business card, I looked at him with a mix of surprise and admiration. It had his name and the title of law firm partner printed on it.
You're a lawyer?
Andrew smiled a bit sheepishly and said,
I've been a lawyer for over a decade, but getting such a surprised reaction from you makes me feel like I'm back to square one, getting all nervous.
After revealing his profession, he inquired if Rebecca had made any other unpleasant demands of me. I shared that from the beginning of my stay as a dependent, Rebecca had treated me almost like a servant, a situation I had resigned myself to as unavoidable. Then he looked at me seriously. I heard from your son, Timothy. The reason Linda started living with them in the condominium was that Timothy wanted to repay his mother for everything she had done. That might be true for him, but I had quit my job and was living part-time without any income, so staying there was really the only option for me.
Still, you quit your job because the harsh working conditions were too much for your health, right? You worked hard, even to the detriment of your health, for Timothy's sake. He understands that. Timothy said that? When Linda was hospitalized for dehydration without consciousness, Timothy shared a lot with me. He really wanted to repay his mother more adequately but felt guilty that he hadn't done enough. He has nothing to feel guilty about. You have every right to refuse Rebecca's unreasonable demands. After all, the reason for living in that condominium was Timothy's desire to repay his mother, Linda. Yet, Rebecca, his wife, not only failed to honor that intent but repeatedly treated you terribly. We have a strong case if it comes to court. As a lawyer, I want to protect you. Andrew's words ignited a dormant fighting spirit within me. Thank you, I'll tell you everything I know. Thus, the heating incident was brought to court. As the defendant, Rebecca appeared in court with a sour expression. It wasn't me who turned on the heating, it was Linda herself. Probably she doesn't remember because she was delirious from the fever. It was undoubtedly you, Rebecca, who turned on the heating. The air conditioner in the guest room was practically new, having never been used before. Yet, curiously, your fingerprints were all over the remote. That's because I put the batteries in it after it was decided Linda would use that bedroom. That's strange. No fingerprints were found on the batteries. You used that remote to set the temperature to an unnaturally high level and then placed a storage shelf in front of the door to prevent it from being opened from the inside. Prevented it from being opened? Where's the evidence for that? It's not just me. The manager was there as a witness, too. When Andrew said that, Rebecca glared at the property manager in the audience and clicked her tongue. Just a few minutes after the heating was activated, you were recorded leaving the condominium by the security cameras. You knowingly left knowing the plaintiff could be in danger. Rebecca's abnormal actions were revealed one by one, causing an uproar in the courtroom. Despite Rebecca's repeated attempts to counter-argue, her responses were off the mark, eventually leading even her own lawyer to despair. Just as promised, we won the trial, Linda. Thank you, Andrew. Not only did you save my life, but you also fought for me in court. I can't thank you enough for everything. The court ordered the defendant to pay a substantial amount in damages for the treatment costs and the mental anguish caused to the plaintiff. But why? Why did you go to such lengths for me? Andrew smiled shyly, like a boy, and confessed. I've had a crush on you since high school. What? I had no idea. I thought you were just into your books and not interested in romance. I laughed out loud, but Andrew, with a serious gaze. Those feelings haven't changed. I was actually happy when you called me for help that day. It meant you were relying on me. That was just a coincidence. I was delirious and my finger just moved on its own. It's not something out of a romantic movie. Even so, I believe it was fate. God meant for us to reunite. No matter what anyone says, that's what it is. But you must have been disappointed to reunite with such an old lady like me. No, not at all. In fact, you seem even more radiant now. Do you have a family, Andrew? Still single. Among our classmates, I'm probably the only one unmarried, always the butt of jokes. A wonderful man like you will find a partner in no time. Would it be so wrong if that partner were you, Linda? I'm just an over 40-year-old lady with a grown son. I quit my job because I couldn't endure the harsh labor. I've never even thought about remarriage. It's too unrealistic. Please don't force yourself to find demeaning words about yourself. I promised to protect you as a lawyer, and I did. Now, as a man, I want to protect you. What do you think?
At that moment, something warm surged within me. Unable to articulate my feelings, tears rolled down my cheeks. Yes. I managed to say that one word and nodded again and again. Later, Timothy decided to formally divorce Rebecca. I'm sorry, Mom. I had no idea you were being treated so terribly behind my back.
I'm sorry. It ended up breaking up your marriage.
I was filled with regret. Don't worry about it, Mom. It's actually good that I saw Rebecca's true nature. If we had continued our marriage, her flaws would have been revealed in another way someday. It was fate. Fate. Hearing you say that makes me feel a bit better. Speaking of fate, wasn't it fate with Andrew?
Maybe. Was this all fate?
I smiled playfully, but Timothy, with a dependable big brother look. It's said that natural pregnancy becomes difficult after 40. Yet, Mom, you're almost 3 months along, right? The fact that you happened to call Andrew, who turned out to be a skilled lawyer, and now your pregnancy. There's no denying its fate. Faced with such a wonderful series of coincidences, I too began to believe this was meant to be. As I caressed my belly, cherishing the new life within, I vowed to protect those I love for as long as I live. In the dim light of the evening, inside the room, the doorbell rang. I wiped the tears streaming down my cheeks and looked toward the entrance. My mother-in-law Anna and my sister-in-law Sophia stood side by side. Oh, they've come to help. I hurried towards the entrance. Opening the door, I was stunned.
Come on, please. Bring them in.
Anna's voice directed people who appeared to be movers.
Excuse us, we're coming in.
And they entered the house.
What? Wait, what's going on?
Hearing my bewildered voice, my son Noah, who was in his room upstairs, hurried down the stairs.
What's happening, Mom?
Noah asked, watching the movers bustling around. Well, I turned back to Noah, confused, when Anna and Sophia spoke up.
We're taking my son's house. You guys need to leave. Yeah, that's right. Get out now.
Meanwhile, my father-in-law John efficiently directed the movers, and the boxes were carried into the living room as well as the other rooms one after another. Suddenly, Noah, his face turning pale, exclaimed,
No, you can't do that. Don't you know, aunties?
His face was ghostly pale.
This house isn't Dad's anymore, and it's haunted.
John turned around, and the movers stopped in their tracks. Catching everyone's attention, Noah shook with a tremor. My name is Emma, 41 years old. My husband, Liam, was a 42-year-old company employee. He had a calm nature and doesn't indulge in alcohol, smoking, or gambling. He worked diligently every day for our family. Liam's hobby was watching movies with me on weekends. Until last year, our son Noah used to join us, but since starting middle school, he preferred spending weekends with his friends over us. While I felt a bit lonely, Liam seemed to find it endearing. He fondly recalled not following his parents' advice to go to a prestigious school, his time as a class representative and student council president, and talked about his high school best friend.
Jackson was your best friend, right? You've always been a top student, haven't you?
I teased. Liam laughed.
If my parents heard that, they'd be outraged.
Squinting his eyes while reminiscing. Still, I had a great time in school. He murmured.
Are you having fun now?
I asked while watching a rented DVD at home.
Yeah, I am.
Liam answered simply. Then, looking around the living room. No. He corrected himself.
It's more than fun. It's happiness. We chose and bought this house ourselves. I have a kind wife and a healthy son.
His face clearly showing that.
There's nothing more I want.
From the bottom of his heart made me blush.
That's where you say beautiful wife.
I swung my arm in mock frustration, and Liam dodged with a laugh.
All right. I'm happy with my beautiful wife. All I need to do now is work hard to pay off that mortgage.
We were still paying off our home loan. Liam had arranged the loan so that I, a housekeeper, wouldn't need to work. I'm the lucky one to have such a kind husband, I thought to myself, watching the DVD next to Liam. Liam would always say that our married life is happy, but I can't help but think it wasn't quite happy for him back when he was living at his parents' house before we got married. It's apparent to anyone that he didn't get along well with his parents and his sister, Sophia. I heard the whole issue started when Liam didn't attend the high school his parents wanted him to go to. Sophia, who is 2 years older than him, obediently enrolled in the high school chosen by their parents. She went to college and even got a job at a company her parents approved of, just as they wanted. My sister has become incapable of thinking or deciding for herself. According to Liam, that's how it was. It's easy to just do as your parents say, but then you become a person who can't act without their instructions. You lose the ability to adapt to situations and make your own decisions. As expected, once Sophia started working at the company, she couldn't do anything without being told what to do, felt uncomfortable, and quit within a year. Then, her parents quickly arranged her marriage to Harry, my brother-in-law. Even though Liam was there, they made Harry their adopted son-in-law and lived with him. To me, it doesn't make sense to adopt a son-in-law when you already have a capable son like Liam. And it's not like John's family was that wealthy or anything. John was just a regular company employee. I didn't see the need for them to struggle financially to send their kids to a preparatory school. Ah, that's just my mother and father putting on a show, Liam would say. Apparently, there was a wealthy family living nearby, and their daughter was the same age as Sophia. When they were younger, they used to play with the neighborhood kids, but that changed once they started attending preparatory school. Nothing in particular happened between them and that family, but Liam's parents envied that girl and her family. Determined to send their own children to a preparatory school, they saved up diligently and managed to enroll Sophia into one. As a result, their dinners were humble, except for Sophia's luxurious sandwiches, a rather odd dietary life. Not seeing the need for such a struggle, Liam chose to attend a local high school. I think that was the right decision. But his parents were furious, and from that day, their attitude towards Liam noticeably changed. They used to beam with vanity when mentioning the high school Sophia attended. When people would remark, "I bet your son is too," they might have felt embarrassed admitting he went to a local school. But there's no need to dream of a higher standard of living than necessary. The in-laws and Sophia's family of 3 kids lived in a rented house. Not that there's anything wrong with renting, but I do wonder if they could have spent their money more effectively instead of just for appearances. They even went into debt to send Sophia to a preparatory school and college, and they're still paying it off. I could never understand their way of thinking or their sense of money. This also applied to the allowances given to the kids. The difference in the amount given to Sophia's kids and to Noah, our son, was blatantly obvious. It might be a difference in affection for the grandchildren living with them, but I can't help feeling sorry for Noah. It makes me sigh to think that even Noah is affected by this. It seems that they also didn't like the fact that we owned our house. A 2-story single-family home. Our house is bigger than the in-laws. Showing off with a study, huh? This house is too nice for you. They often came over to our place and made such snide remarks. On top of that, they'd make sarcastic comments like, "Look, there's a stain here," or "The flooring is discolored," and so on and so forth. They would also nitpick. "It's not that impressive after all," they would complain. I really don't see the point of them doing that. If they don't like it, they shouldn't come over. According to Liam, they're just jealous. Or so he said. They're envious because they don't have money and we bought a house, even though we're paying a mortgage. Liam laughed, saying it's all because of their strange habit of keeping up appearances. Harry must have been earning a decent salary. John, who was in his 60s, was still working. But their debt repayment was holding them back.
Don't worry about it,
Liam said, but Anna and Sophia would come over when Liam or Noah weren't around. Lately, they've been walking around our house freely while I prepare coffee.
This should be our bedroom. My husband likes this room. This room is spacious. Maybe it could be a study room for the kids?
They'd exchange such comments with each other.
What are you doing?
When I finally let my discomfort show, they just smirked and said,
Oh dear, we were just looking around.
Yeah, and you take your sweet time making coffee. I closed the door of the room they were snooping in and had them return to the living room. When Anna asked for a spare key, I felt a bit scared. I couldn't possibly give a spare key to Anna, who walks around someone else's house uninvited. There's a chance she could enter our house when no one is around and rummage through drawers and closets. I thought it was so selfish of them to ask for a spare key when they treated Liam so poorly.
I'll have to talk to Liam about that.
I dodged the question and had Liam call later to firmly refuse the request.
How could you deny a key to your own parents?
Anna was furious, but unfortunately, it's his parents who are untrustworthy, so it can't be helped.
Anyhow, just come over when either Emma or myself are at home,
Liam said, ending the call. Good health is the most important thing. It's a saying we often hear. At this age, I suddenly felt the weight of those words. Liam was diagnosed with cancer. After feeling unwell in his stomach and getting tested, we were lost for words. Each test revealed more cancer spread throughout his body. The doctor said that without surgery, he only had a few months to live. We had insurance, but it wasn't enough. We had to deal with not only the hospital bills but living expenses and our mortgage too. The happiness we had built fell apart in an instant. I was trembling with fear of losing Liam and the uncertainty of our future. I didn't know what to do and was just scared.
I'll ask my parents for help.
My parents had already passed away. Being an only child, I had no other family to turn to.
Okay. I'll go too.
We told Liam's parents, Sophia and her husband, about his condition and asked for financial help.
Cancer can be treated pretty easily these days, right?
Sophia didn't seem to grasp the situation. The in-laws were hesitant about giving financial aid, though not as much as Sophia.
I thought I heard you finished paying off your debt a few months ago.
Yeah, we finally managed to.
Please, we will definitely pay you back. Lend us the money for the surgery and hospitalization. The money you were going to spend on my education, lend it to us now. Please. I will work too, please just help us.
We begged, going on our knees and crossing our hands together. No way.
We've only just started being able to afford some luxuries recently. I have insurance that will waive the mortgage if I die. Should that happen, I'll even sell the house to pay back what we borrowed from you. We'll write a memorandum too.
We pleaded again and again. But despite somewhat expecting it, we were devastated when Liam's parents shook their heads, refusing to help.
In that case, why don't you just sell the house now?
Of course, we knew that might be our only option eventually. But if we were to sell it then, we would have to make sure that the money we make can cover hospital bills, treatment costs, and even the rent for a new place for us after subtracting the remaining mortgage. I heard that before we got married, Liam used to send money home to his parents even after he had moved out. It seemed only fair that they could spend a little money for Liam now. No matter how much we pleaded, my in-laws and Sophia's answers didn't change. Liam straightened his back and replied in a flat voice.
Understood.
That's fine. As we were leaving.
Wait a minute.
Harry caught up with us.
This isn't nearly enough, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't have any savings.
And he handed Liam $1,000. Of course, he wouldn't have savings. He was helping with the debt repayment. Despite their boastful claims of,
we finally paid it off.
It was also thanks to Harry.
I'll try to persuade them again. Please don't lose heart.
We thanked Harry deeply for his kind words.
Thank you. Just the thought is enough.
But still, do you have a plan? Yes. Like my sister said, we're thinking of selling the house.
Really?
I couldn't help but exclaim. Selling the house isn't simple, there are many procedures to go through, and it will take time. There wouldn't be enough time for Liam's hospitalization, which was in a few days. Even if we managed to sell it, we would need to find a new place to live. It's not going to be easy or quick.
Don't worry. I just remembered someone who might be able to help.
Liam said, smiling at me. Liam fought hard with the cancer for 2 years since the diagnosis. Despite being given only a few months to live, we made many happy memories as a family of 3, in and out of the hospital. We had grown distant with my in-laws, but when the doctor said, "He probably can't return home," I contacted them. They visited a few times, but they would just say, "He still looks okay," in a cold manner, and go back home right away. It's as if they were just coming to see how much longer Liam has left. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the thought. Surely not. Contact his family, the doctor said. The time had finally come. I called Anna hastily.
Oh my gosh! I need to hurry. Yes, it's urgent. You must come to his room right away.
Huh? Oh, okay. I'll come if I can. The call ended abruptly, and I returned to Liam and Noah in the hospital room. Only Harry, who came directly from work, and Liam's best friend Jackson showed up. Liam barely opened his eyes, but looked happy to see everyone before closing them for the last time. Harry and Jackson helped with the funeral arrangements. Harry stayed with Liam while Jackson drove Noah and I home so that we could get ready. It was morning when we left the hospital, but the sun had already started to set. We hadn't even cleaned up after breakfast because we had left in a hurry. I turned on the lights in the dim house in the evening. I sat down in the living room and flipped through a photo album. Tears flowed as I looked through it. I wiped the tears falling onto the table and chose a photo of Liam out of all the memorable photos. The doorbell rang. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and looked at the entrance. Anna and Sophia were standing side by side. Oh, they've come to help. Even though they didn't make it in time for Liam's final moments, I hurried to the entrance, thankful they came. But I was stunned when I opened the door.
Come on, bring everything in.
Anna's voice directed people who appeared to be movers.
Excuse us, we're coming in.
And they entered the house.
What? Wait, what's going on?
Hearing my bewildered voice, my son Noah, who was in his room upstairs, hurried down the stairs.
What's happening, Mom?
He asked, watching the movers bustling around. Well, I turned back to Noah, confused, when Anna and Sophia spoke up.
We're taking my son's house. You guys need to leave. Yeah, that's right. Get out now.
Meanwhile, John efficiently directed the movers, and the boxes were carried into the living room as well as the other rooms one after another. Suddenly, Noah, his face turning pale, exclaimed.
No, you can't do that. Don't you know, aunties?
Noah's face was ghostly pale.
This house isn't Dad's anymore, and it's haunted.
John turned around, and the movers stopped in their tracks. Catching everyone's attention, Noah shook with a tremor. In the midst of all this, a figure comes in through the entrance.
What the heck are you doing bringing stuff into my house without permission? Get it out right now.
Everyone jumped up at the sound of Jackson's angry voice, which seemed to echo throughout the house, or rather, the entire neighborhood. The movers began taking the stuff they had just brought in back outside without checking with my in-laws, their customers. Not knowing what to do with the boxes, they just left them on the street in front of the house.
No, my desk!
I heard my nephew's voice and turned to see Harry standing there with his 3 children. The children, seeing their belongings abandoned on the street, made complaints one after another, while Harry asked Sophia.
I came over when I heard about the sudden move, but what's this all about?
Although Harry is usually mild-mannered, he was furious.
What? But Mom said we were moving. What are you talking about? You agreed too.
In the midst of an ugly argument between mother and daughter, Harry coldly declared,
I can't deal with you all anymore. We're getting a divorce. What? Wait, what are you saying?
Harry negotiated directly with the movers to take only his and the children's belongings to his parents' house.
Sorry for the trouble at such a difficult time. I'll have them take the kids and our stuff to my parents' place.
Without giving Sophia a second glance, Harry and the kids left with the movers. Sophia collapsed crying on the road, and the in-laws stood dumbfounded among the remaining belongings. The neighbors came out to see what was happening, turning the situation into a nightmare.
Can we at least move these inside so they're not in the way?
I nodded at his words.
Yes, that's fine. This is your house, after all. What do you mean?
The in-laws stared at us, confused. This is the truth. The day after being refused financial help by my in-laws 2 years ago, Liam brought home with him a very tough-looking man. That man was Jackson. He ran a real estate business and even gave me his business card. I was told that he was a high school classmate of Liam's. Not only was his face tough-looking, but he had an intimidating vibe, so I couldn't help but imagine that he was involved with shady business. Noah got frightened and clung to me tightly, even though he was already in middle school. I glanced at Liam with concern. Noticing my gaze, Liam tilted his head and then laughed as if he just realized something.
It's okay. Jackson might look scary, but he's a respectable member of society now. Now?
That's when Noah timidly pointed it out. Jackson's eyes widened, and he smacked Liam's head.
Liam!
Liam was ill, for God's sake. I couldn't believe it, but Liam just laughed heartily. Noah looked so pale that I was worried if he was even breathing.
Jackson, you didn't even come to our wedding, even though I sent you an invitation. And you never pay us a visit even though I invite you over.
I suddenly remembered. The name Jackson often came up in Liam's stories about his school days and when he went out drinking. From the stories, he seemed like a good friend, so I never imagined this was the same person. You can see why. My looks scare people, so showing up at your wedding or visiting would just cause trouble.
Is that why you're still single? I'll hit you again.
I could tell from their light banter that this was indeed the Jackson that Liam had been talking about. I couldn't help but chuckle at their conversation. Both stopped and looked at me.
Sorry. It's just that Liam is so excited, like a child. Huh? He's always like this. Jackson. Remember, Noah is here too. A father's dignity is important. Dignity, that's something you've never had. Noah.
Noah's remark lightened the mood. I told Jackson that Liam was really disappointed he didn't come to our wedding and that we want him to visit any time. Thank you. Now, let's move on to business. We don't have the luxury of time. Jackson's demeanor changed suddenly to a serious expression. First, let me look at the condition of the house. Jackson went around checking each room. Once he finished examining the exterior walls and the meter box, he pulled out his laptop and started typing something. After a while, he showed us the screen.
How about this amount for the selling price?
I was taken aback by the amount he proposed. It was higher than what we had paid when we bought it. It's a very generous appraisal, but can we really sell it for this price? It's been about 10 years since we moved in, and there would be no point if it doesn't sell. We hadn't renovated it in years. Like Anna and Sophia said, there are stains here and there. I heard about that from Liam. They were talking about what they were going to do with each room, right? Yes. That means they think it's still perfectly habitable. Don't worry, it will sell for this price. Full of confidence, Jackson assured us.
You can trust him.
Liam added. Understood. Please proceed with this price. As I agreed, Jackson quickly spread several documents on the table.
Oh, and we need to find somewhere else to live.
At my words, Jackson responded, "Sure." With a smile. He laid out rental agreement papers as well. "First, I will buy this house directly. That solves one problem. Then, I'll rent it back to you. There, the second problem is also solved." Huh. I was taken aback, but Jackson continued. "I'll transfer the money from the sale into your account within a few days. From there, we can pay off the remaining loan." Jackson smiled reassuringly. It was a boyish smile that made his earlier intimidating impression vanish. As we filled out the documents, I noticed the rental fee.
$100.
Both Liam and Noah looked surprised too, peering over the document. "Shouldn't it be $1,000? Liam said. "It's a typo, right?" And as we laughed, "It's not a mistake," Jackson said. "What?" "I owe that much to Liam." After a moment of thought. "No, you don't," Liam said. But Jackson told me about their high school days. Jackson was a real delinquent back then. He had been in trouble with the police several times and was often in fights which left his mother in tears. One day, his mother, a single mom, was hospitalized. She had fainted from stress and exhaustion. Rushing to the hospital, Jackson was shocked to see how frail and small his mother had become. He realized it was his fault and bawled his eyes out like a child. After that, he changed his ways, stopped getting into fights, and stayed out of trouble with the police. But then one day, a cigarette butt was found on the rooftop of the school building. It caught fire in a nearby dumpster and caused a small blaze. This became a problem at school, and they assumed Jackson, who had a bad reputation, was the culprit. No matter how much he denied it, saying, "It's not me," no one believed him due to his past behavior. He was at risk of being expelled. When his mother burst into tears again, Liam believed in Jackson's innocence. "He was the only one who believed in my innocence. He was the student council president at the time. We were in the same class but had never really talked before." Jackson reminisced, saying Liam had protested to the principal, did some investigation among the students, gathered evidence, and found the real culprit. "Huh, but you had insisted you didn't do it, right?" Naturally, I believed him. "No way. But thanks to you, I graduated high school and gave back to my mother. I even became the president of a company." That's why Jackson said he owed that much. The three of us, as a family, exchanged glances and gratefully accepted the rent proposal. This was what happened that day 2 years ago. As Noah said, "I own this house now and am renting it to this family. If you don't believe me, I'll show you the documents later." Jackson glanced at Noah, then turned back to the in-laws with a smile. "However, either family is welcome to rent the house. Shall I offer you a bargain?" Jackson smiled at my astonishment. "I'll also introduce you to new properties." After the funeral, we moved out of the house and into an apartment Jackson had recommended. Just unpack the bare essentials. We'll probably be able to move back to that house soon," Jackson said with a mischievous smile, and I asked him what made him think so. Noah, curious too, came closer to us. "I actually thought about kicking them out that day. But then I changed my mind. Listen, here's the plan." Jackson leaned in, as if sharing a secret with us. 3 days later, we went back to our old home saying, "We left a couple of things behind," under the pretense that we were retrieving them. Anna reluctantly offered snacks when Jackson joined us. "How's the new place?" "Not bad at all," John replied contentedly. "Really?" Noah asked. "Yes, really. No noises from the empty stairs? Or in the shower room?" Noah looked around the living room fearfully. "Right, Noah said there were ghosts, didn't he?" "I don't think Mom knows about it, but ever since Dad got hospitalized, I started to hear strange noises. Once, I saw the hem of a skirt on the stairs, thinking Mom was back, but no one was there." "That's ridiculous." Anna's words were cut off as Noah and Jackson simultaneously looked upstairs. Is there someone on the second floor? That was impossible. Sophia completely lost her vigor after her divorce with Harry was finalized. Although she was silent, she was in the living room.
What? Stop with this nonsense.
I didn't hear anything. Noah and Jackson exchanged glances and hurriedly packed up. That's good to hear. We'll take our leave then. They rushed out of the house and quickly got into the car. The in-laws, who had come to see us off at the entrance, looked frightened. In the car, we burst into laughter. Jackson's plan was to use the lie about ghosts that Noah had made up on the spot.
This is for treating Liam poorly for so long. Where in the world do you find a parent or sister neglecting their dying son and getting ready to move into his house?
I couldn't agree more with the words that Jackson spat out while he was driving. Jackson and Noah played such pranks on them repeatedly. Eventually, it was even said that mysterious incidents that neither of them had even mentioned would occur in that house. The in-laws and Sophia got creeped out, mistaking the noises in the house for poltergeists. They complained to Jackson and Noah, but we never experienced such things.
Jumping to conclusions can be a scary thing,
Noah said, laughing. Eventually, the in-laws and Sophia couldn't stand it anymore and moved out of the house. They rented a place within their budget, introduced by Jackson. That was just business. I made sure to find them a decent, budget-friendly old apartment, Jackson said with a sly smirk, and Noah and I applauded. By the way, Sophia, after divorcing Harry, had to start working again to pay child support. Seems like she's getting a taste of the harshness of society. I wish her all the best now that she has to single-handedly take care of her parents who had looked after her. Eventually, we returned to the house we bought with Liam. Although we couldn't buy it back, we still live there for a rent of $100. Harry and his 3 kids have started to visit again. Sophia seems to be asking for reconciliation, but Harry is not considering it at all. Once a month, Jackson comes over to collect the rent. He times it with Liam's monthly anniversary. After looking at Liam's photo, we have dinner together, and he even listens to Noah's troubles, now a high school student. And Noah and I have a little secret joy. It's the stories about Liam's school days that we hear occasionally at dinner. We hear so many stories that we never knew about, and we learn new things about Liam. I'm sure Liam is smiling with us around the dining table.
No way, come on,
Liam would say, making childish excuses.
Your husband and I are starting a business together. We'll take the sales and the employees.
Dorothy and Brian said this with a nasty smirk. I was at a loss for words. As soon as we graduated from college, we started a small business. And this happened just when the business began to turn a profit at last. The two cornered me in the office, laughing.
Thanks for everything up to now. But we don't need you anymore. Brian and I can handle it ourselves.
Brian nodded to Dorothy's triumphant words. It seemed they had planned to cut me out all along. I clenched my teeth. For considering them as my best friend and a kind husband. But now I see. This is their true nature. If that's the case, so be it. Dorothy. Brian. I have my pride too. And I won't let you trample on it. Bring it on, Dorothy. I'm Karen. 29 years old. I started a small business with Dorothy and Brian, whom I met in college. We call it a handyman service, but mostly we do household chores for others. When we started, there were no other employees, so we managed all the work between the 3 of us. During that time, Brian proposed to me. I liked him back, so I happily accepted his proposal. Dorothy congratulated us. How kind they both seemed. I thought I was truly blessed with such friends, until the moment I heard this rumor. Dorothy also had feelings for Brian.
I'm off, see you. Be careful on your way,
Brian said to Dorothy in a light tone as she was leaving for work. You get lost easily. I'm fine. I've been to this client's place several times. The car navigation system knows the way perfectly, Dorothy said confidently. Laughter broke out among the employees. Dorothy was everyone's favorite. Ever since college, she was smart but had her ditzy moments, and they loved her for her goofy character. I liked Dorothy too. We hit it off right after entering college and dreamed of starting our own business. Brian joined us midway, and our dream began to take a more concrete shape. And now, here we are, living that dream.
Brian, you should go with her, I'm worried.
Ah, Karen, you sure are demanding. Brian shrugged his shoulders as if he was reluctant. The employees still looked amused. Eventually, an older employee named Jennifer agreed to accompany Dorothy. To be honest, I was a bit uncomfortable around Jennifer. So when she was out of sight, I felt a slight sense of relief. Of course, I would never intend to discriminate against any employee. But Jennifer clearly disliked me. It was obvious. I don't know why.
Jennifer was bad-mouthing you again.
One of the employees whispered to me. It was during break time. I sighed. I don't mind. It's nothing new.
But she was saying awful things. Something like Brian was Dorothy's boyfriend and that you stole him.
What? I dropped the documents I was holding. They scattered across the table. As I hurriedly gathered them up, I tried to muster a smile.
That's terrible. Brian has only ever been interested in me.
But according to Jennifer, Brian and Dorothy were the real couple, and I was just in the way. But it was Brian who confessed his feelings to me, and Dorothy never said anything about it. It must be just another baseless rumor.
Why does Jennifer always speak ill of you?
I don't know. All I could do was shake my head. Jennifer is 63, a veteran among the staff. All I knew was that she lived with her eldest son and his wife after her husband passed away. Just an ordinary woman. So why does she dislike me? Why spread such awful lies? I don't understand. I don't know how to deal with it because I don't understand. Of course, she wasn't always like this. When did it start? Right, it was. On the way home from a welcome party for Jennifer, which was also a get-together with booze. Maybe it was that day.
That day?
You know, Dorothy is a lightweight. She suddenly started crying that day. Jennifer was comforting and encouraging her, and it started the day after that. Jennifer was a normal woman. But after that day, she began to dislike me. Why? Oh, that makes sense. Another employee, who had been doing paperwork, chimed in. It's well known among us. Dorothy badmouths you when she's drunk. What? I blinked in shock.
Hey, that was supposed to be a secret.
It's not something that can be hidden forever. Karen, you better be careful around Dorothy. Although, Jennifer is the only one taking the gossip seriously as for now. The male employee said languidly and returned to his work. I was overwhelmed with disbelief. Dorothy, speaking ill of me. Yes. The first employee spoke again, looking uncomfortable. Dorothy starts talking the moment you're out of sight. It's all made-up stories, terrible gossip. No way. I thought this must be some kind of joke. Dorothy is my best friend. I can't believe she would say bad things about me. But the worst part is Brian. Brian? I wondered why Brian was being brought up in this context. As my expression darkened, the employee continued with difficulty. Brian, no matter how awful things Dorothy says, he just laughs and seems to enjoy it, even egging her on. That can't be true. I had stood up from my chair. I picked up my mobile phone. I called Dorothy. Hello. Hey, stop joking around now. What joke? Apparently Jennifer is badmouthing me because of you. That's a horrible story, right? Well. Dorothy paused, seemingly deep in thought. I was hoping she would quickly declare her innocence. Dorothy wouldn't betray me. Hey, Dorothy. What? It was Dorothy's usual, cheerful voice. I felt relieved. After all, what the employees said must be false. Jennifer must have badmouthed me so persistently that everyone started to make up this joke. Seriously.
So you found out all of it? Huh?
I blurted out in a daze. What did Dorothy just say?
I was planning to gradually increase my allies, but no one else fell for it except Jennifer. Maybe it's time to try something different. Dorothy, what are you talking about? Just kidding. Wait, what?
The next moment, Dorothy burst out laughing.
Don't take it seriously, we're friends, right? I would never do such a thing.
Right. I slumped back into my chair, feeling drained. The employees looked at me anxiously. Dorothy was laughing on the other end of the phone. Innocent and lovely Dorothy. She was like everyone's idol. Even now, she's popular among the employees. I like her, too. I thought I did.
It was all a lie, right? Yes, all lies.
Dorothy's affirmation. Jennifer's attitude, and the employees' rumors. I couldn't tell what was true anymore. About Jennifer. I hesitated. Honestly, I didn't want to talk about it. But Jennifer's attitude towards me was strange. I intended to discuss it with Dorothy and Brian.
What's up? She's very harsh towards me. I just think it's going to be hard to work with her moving forward. You're not thinking of firing her, are you?
Brian looked at me sternly. Dorothy's smile had faded too. I was unable to look into their eyes, and I looked down.
But her gossiping is crossing the line. It must be hard being talked about like that.
Dorothy seemed to sympathize with me. She's kind after all, I thought. Then Dorothy said,
But it's funny to watch, isn't it? What? Nothing. Karen, think it over. Jennifer is our ace employee, and we've worked together for so long. It would be too cruel to fire her now. I think so too.
Their opinions were the exact opposite of mine. Indeed, many clients have specifically requested Jennifer. Plus, Jennifer was the first employee we hired after starting the company. I have some kind of attachment to her too. But,
like I said before, Jennifer's harshness towards me is because of Dorothy. There are rumors about that. If it's not just me, but Dorothy's reputation falls too.
That's unavoidable,
Dorothy said with a troubled expression.
Because, well, it's the truth. Dorothy. I sighed. Lately, Dorothy has been teasing me excessively. She's manipulating Jennifer to take my place. Even though that can't possibly be true.
Really, Karen, you're too nice.
Brian suddenly said. I looked at him in surprise, and Brian had a smile on his face. A very unpleasant smile. What Dorothy is saying is true. I was dating Dorothy. Brian, not you too. But along the way, he got greedy. You were better in both grades and popularity. If anyone was to be the boss, it had to be you. So Brian left me for you, Karen. They took turns speaking. Words I didn't want to hear.
Stop it.
But Karen, you're too naive, aren't you? With that attitude, you can't compete with the cunning folks in other companies.
Stop it!
I shouted. My throat hurt from suddenly raising my voice. As I rubbed my throat, Dorothy started laughing. Just admit it, Karen. It's all true. I've been feeding Jennifer all this, and she's been taking it seriously. I began to tremble at her words.
It's crazy! That's just crazy! Why would you do such thing?
Why? It's obvious, isn't it? Dorothy said, curling her lips.
You stole Brian from me. Not just that. In school, you were always above me in grades. It was always like that. Because of you, I could never be the first. But Dorothy, you were chosen as the most beautiful girl in college. That was because I worked hard to please everyone and put on a friendly face. But what about you, Karen? Without any effort, you made it into the top 10. Don't joke with me. Who's joking now?
I had forgotten about the pain in my throat. Tears were streaming from both eyes. How disgusting. Crying like that.
Exactly. Dorothy's face is still the best. I made a mistake in choosing a partner.
Yes, indeed. Dorothy briefly glared at Brian, probably despising him for his opportunistic nature. But the next moment, she turned a sweet smile and voice to Brian. "Come back to me, Brian." "No." "Dorothy, what are you saying?" "Right, even without Karen, the company can go on. Maybe, Dorothy, you should be the president, and I can assist you."
You don't want to be the president yourself?
"I don't want a role that just dumps responsibilities on me. I'm more suited to being number 2. Brian said this casually. This is nonsense. A nightmare. I need to wake up quickly. I can't endure this any longer." As I was crouching and crying, Dorothy suddenly said, "Hey, Karen. If you think you've done anything bad to me, I'll give you a chance to atone." "Atone? What sin do I have?" "About Brian?" I really didn't know. But if it's true, I feel sorry. The moment I looked up. "Give me this company and Brian," Dorothy said, smiling. "Your husband and I are taking over the business. We'll take the sales and employees." The two of them laughed triumphantly. It was a terrifying smirk. I finally understood. They had been planning on using me all along and to kick me out of the company once I'm no longer needed. "Thanks for your hard work until now. But we don't need you anymore. Brian and I can manage on our own." That's right. I'm remarrying Dorothy, so I don't need you anymore." Their words made something inside me snap. They really had the nerve to say whatever they wanted. I have my pride too. To be trampled on so cruelly. I won't just walk away quietly. Silently, I glared at them. Then, it was my turn to smile at them.
"Suit yourselves."
"Oh, how magnanimous of you." I slipped past the two of them and walked away. Dorothy still looked proud. She must think I'm being docile out of a sense of defeat. Let her interpret it however she wants. We're not friends anymore, anyway.
"Brian, I'll write up the divorce papers."
Just like that?" Brian seemed a bit taken aback. "No regrets? You don't fully understand my charm?"
"Whatever."
Dorothy crossed her legs, looking pleased with herself. I turned back to them and said,
"Now, I can go to France without any worries." "Huh?"
Dorothy let out a surprised exclamation.
"France? What's that about?" "I got a job offer from a company there. I was turning it down because I was responsible for our company. But I guess that doesn't matter anymore."
Yeah. Go wherever you want." After saying that, Dorothy added in a lower voice. "What company is it, may I ask?"
"It is."
I gave them the name. It was a globally renowned corporation that even children would know in this era. Dorothy's voice and expression grew frantic.
"Why are you being scouted and not me? I didn't get any offers."
"Neither did I," Brian added, looking puzzled.
"Brian, you're just a freebie,"
Dorothy bluntly stated.
"Seriously?"
Brian looked dejected, but in reality, Dorothy and I were the ones who started the business. Brian was more like an assistant, or something like that. He was always like a little chick following behind. Even for Brian, it seems, was upset by Dorothy's manner of speaking.
"Dorothy, you weren't invited either." "That's right. Karen and I were a team. We've been through everything together, so why is it that Karen is the only one getting attention from big companies?"
"I should mention,"
I said, exasperated. "Dorothy might have been doing the publicity and noticeable work, but the important, behind-the-scenes work? That was all me. Like sending emails to clients, for example."
Dorothy couldn't be bothered, but I made sure to send a thank you email to every customer. Partly hoping they would use our services again. but mostly because I was happy they chose our company. I kept sending emails, expressing my gratitude. Then, one day,
one of the clients replied. Their grandchild works for the company we just mentioned, and they talked about my work. That led to them wanting to meet me. Come to think of it, you went to France alone last month,
Brian said, suddenly realizing.
Why didn't you tell me sooner?
Well, I thought it was just a trip. Brian seemed to be making excuses. Dorothy looked furious. Until just now, she thought she had one. But again, it turned out to be my victory.
That's why I'm going to France.
I waved my hand and left the office. I heard Dorothy's screams, but I could care less. After signing the divorce papers as agreed, I arranged for a moving company.
Oh, right.
I came up with an idea. I called another company on my mobile phone. Hello. I'd like to sell all the furniture in my house. I'm used to negotiating. I wrapped up the conversation efficiently. Then, there was a noise at the door. Brian had returned.
Hey, Karen. What is it?
This house, you bought it, but if you're going to France, you won't need it, right? So,
it's fine. I've already arranged to sell the furniture and the house,
I said cheerfully. Brian screamed.
Why would you do such a thing? Where am I supposed to live from tomorrow? Go stay with Dorothy,
I said bluntly. I was a bit surprised by my own words. I realized I had no feelings left for Brian.
You're not selling the company too, are you? That's impossible. Dorothy, my co-owner, would need to agree.
Right. Brian nodded, relieved.
From tomorrow, Dorothy will be running the company alone. Be careful. Dorothy doesn't do anything troublesome. Your threat won't work on me. I'm just warning you,
I said and went to the kitchen.
I'll make dinner.
What?
Until the divorce is finalized, we are still married. And I have no intention of shirking my duties as a wife.
I've always made meals, every day. No matter how busy, I never neglected my household duties. That was my pride. Though today would be the last time I'd cook for Brian.
Well, then.
Tonight's dinner is beef stew. I splurged a little on some good meat this time. I sautéed it with onions and butter, carefully. With tomato salad and juice, tonight's dinner was ready. We ate facing each other. There was hardly any conversation. But, the words Brian said strangely stayed with me.
This is the last time I'll eat your cooking, Karen. Did you like it? It was okay.
Brian, ever childish, never praised my cooking until the end. Yet, I was content. I had remained a good wife till the end. The next day, after confirming the divorce papers were processed, I headed to the office. There was a buzz of activity inside. As I entered, one of the employees approached me.
Karen! Is it true you're being forced out of the company?
It's true. I explained again that I was leaving the company and heading to France alone. A murmur spread among the employees. Karen is amazing, as expected.
Karen! We can't run the company without you. I'm quitting this company.
Don't say that. I tried to calm them. But, except for one, they all insisted on quitting. I'll stay. Of course, it was Jennifer who said that. The youngest employee looked at Jennifer accusingly. I stopped them just as they were about to speak. Instead, I spoke.
Jennifer.
Yes? Her reply was curt, as I had grown accustomed to. In fact, thinking I wouldn't hear her voice again made me somewhat sad.
Dorothy is flashy and loves attention. Brian is indecisive and rarely takes initiative. Please take care of those two. That's what I was planning to.
Jennifer glanced at me and nodded. As if she had figured it out all along.
Even if I'm the only employee left, I will support them. I'm not like the other ungrateful employees. What did you say?
Stop. I held them back while looking around the office. I had done well to grow the company this far. What would become of it now, losing all employees except Jennifer? I wouldn't be there to see it anyways.
Karen! What are you doing in our company?
Dorothy's voice rang out. This place was no longer mine. Her footsteps were my cue to leave the office. Next, I headed to a restaurant arranged by the client. And their grandchild waiting for me. We parted with smiles. But I didn't take up their offer. I still had things to do in Japan.
What do you think you're doing?
Dorothy barged into my office while I was working. I looked at her face while sitting.
What? Karen, weren't you going to France? Why are you starting a business in America?
That's right. In the end, I didn't go to France. Instead, I decided to start over in America. The reason was simple.
How could I leave the employees who admire me in a difficult situation? So, you poach our employees and then act like it's nothing.
I didn't poach anyone. They came to me because they couldn't work under you, Dorothy. As they declared, all employees except Jennifer quit Dorothy's company. I couldn't just abandon them and go to France alone. I felt obligated to provide them a stable working environment again.
Jennifer is there for you. One person can't cover everything. And Brian is useless.
Isn't managing a part of your job as a president? I replied nonchalantly. Dorothy groaned, at a loss for words. I sighed and closed my laptop. Dorothy. It's not bad to want things. People need ambition. Whether it's born from an inferiority complex or a motivation, I think it's okay.
Are you lecturing me?
That's not the point. As a president, Dorothy, you have a duty to keep Brian and Jennifer away from difficult situations. And of course, if the business fails, it will affect you too. It would make me sad. That company is like a child to me.
I know that.
Dorothy bit her lip.
But I don't know what to do. Jobs that were coming in smoothly are now reducing. The online reviews are terrible. They write it was better with the former president.
Customers are honest. I shrugged. Do you send thank you emails to your customers? Are you polite to them at work?
Stop nagging!
Dorothy got angry. Such a child. I was amazed at my lack of judgment. Or maybe Dorothy just fooled me well. Probably both. Before showing her true nature, Dorothy seemed kind and graceful. Who knew she was this selfish and childish? Brian seems lost too. Another email. After Dorothy left crying, I opened my laptop again. There was an email from Brian. I didn't even need to check it. He was probably asking if he could join my company, maybe even hinting at reconciliation. How selfish can a man be? Doesn't he feel ashamed to be dependent on a woman? Brian and Dorothy broke up, it seems. A female employee said, bringing a cup of tea. Is that so? They never remarried. As soon as Brian heard about you starting a new business, he initiated the breakup. I heard from him directly. I propped my chin on my hand. I needed to meet Brian to clear things up. That weekend, I called Brian to a cafe near the company. He looked happy. And was overly considerate.
It's been a while. How have you been?
Yes, well. If only you and Dorothy in front of me could get it together, I'd feel more at ease. But Brian's attitude suggested that was unlikely.
The food tastes better when I'm looking at your face, Karen. Oh, but the food you cooked was even better.
Is that so? Even though he never once praised my cooking while we were married. I checked my watch and said shortly,
I have no intention of remarrying you, nor hiring you at my company.
Don't say that. For the sake of our past as a couple.
We're no longer a couple.
I dismissed Brian's wishful thinking.
Well then, I'll be going. Wait! If you persist, I might have to consult a lawyer.
What? At the mention of a lawyer, Brian looked frightened. Good. Cowardly Brian wouldn't have the nerve to bother me further. I paid for my share and decided to return to the office. Brian, holding his wallet, shouted,
You called me here and you want to split the bills? Are you offering to pay the full amount?
Leaving a groaning Brian behind, I left the cafe. Unfortunately, the company Dorothy ran went under. Poor reviews and her attitude drove customers away. It's a pity for Jennifer, who lost her job, but it couldn't be helped. Please, hire me at your company. Please, I beg you. Now, they are both bowing their heads to me. After all their arrogance towards me, what could you possibly say to me? Please leave. I said very politely, yet distantly.
There's no place for you here. It's because you started a rival company.
Dorothy exposed her true self again. Brian was shocked, but Dorothy kept shouting.
I know all our customers went to your place.
I didn't lead them there. I spoke in a soothing tone.
Both the employees and the customers made their choices on their own. Do you think I alone could influence so many people?
Dorothy knew the truth deep down. What was right and what was wrong. The mistake of driving me out of the company. Her failure to take her duty as president seriously. It all comes down to one thing, people's trust.
Now, both of you, please leave. If you continue to make a scene, I'll have to call the police. No way!
Brian cried out in pain, while Dorothy cradled her head and crouched down. Leaving those two behind, I returned to my work. There are customers and employees waiting for me. I can't afford to stop. Anthony. That's the name of the person who introduced me to the large corporation. He works there himself and has started contacting me regularly since then. I enjoy talking to him a lot. Informative, and his choice of words is laced with humor. I'm glad I got to know you, Karen. He wrote in one of his emails, in a heartfelt tone. It's been a while since I've had a Japanese friend, being abroad. Friend. That word pained my heart. I was betrayed by those I thought were my closest friends. But I emerged victorious. I'm not weak enough to be outdone and left behind. That incident made me realize my strength. After some hesitation, I replied, I'm also glad to have met you, Anthony. If you ever come back to America, let me know. I'd be happy to have a meal together. I still can't use the word friend. It's not Anthony, but the word friend I'm wary of. Yet, I'm confident that soon I can call Anthony a friend. I can't be rude to someone who opens their heart to me. Especially when I'm starting to trust Anthony. Speaking of trust, the same goes for my employees. I am still grateful to them for believing in me and following me.
Karen.
Yes, yes. Responding to the puppyish call, I stand up from my chair. Feeling myself naturally giving a smile on my face.
I did what you could never do for Yosef.
With those words, she showed off her newborn niece, Amelia, to me. Seeing me struggle for words, Yara wore a triumphant smile.
Doesn't she look adorable, just like Yara? I bet she'll be a model or an actress someday.
My betraying husband, Yosef, then added an insult to his remark.
Time to head home, I guess. We've been able to show our happiness to the single Kayla over here, so it's been quite a satisfying today.
Yosef exchanged a sly glance with Yara, both grinning deviously. What did they think of children? Were they just tools to flaunt in front of me, who couldn't have kids? Their attitude was pushing my anger to its limits. That's when I realized something. Wait, this child.
What is it? You're looking serious, all of a sudden.
Yosef responded, slightly caught off guard by my mutter. I couldn't help but find the situation amusing and began to chuckle. Gently stroking the baby's cheek, I replied. Such an angel, but her skin. As I revealed a certain truth, the smug looks on their faces froze instantly. My name is Kayla, 52 years old. My husband, Yosef, is an executive at a major trading company, whom I've supported as a housewife for many years. Yosef occasionally brings colleagues over to enjoy my cooking. Most of what comes out of Yosef's mouth are boasts about his younger days. His colleagues, brought along, would force a smile and endure his long stories, saying, "That's amazing." When they praise my cooking as delicious, Yosef smirks unpleasantly and says, "Well, that's about the only talent she has. She's eating off my high salary, so she better do at least this much, or she's just useless." And so he said, belittling me in front of his subordinates. I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me, but I always reminded myself that I wasn't in a position to argue. It's been almost 30 years since we got married, but we've never had children. I always dreamed of having at least 2 kids after marriage. Despite spending time and money on fertility treatments, we were never blessed with children. I felt a sense of guilt for not being able to bear children. So, no matter how heartless Yosef's words were, I'd smile and think, I can endure this much. When Yosef talks about work, his eyes shine like a boy's, and I was happy to support him in any way I could. After all, I'm in love with Yosef. Apart from cooking, I had another talent. It was sewing, a hobby since my student days. I started making hand-sewn dolls, imitating my mother. They became quite popular among my friends. I used this skill to help with the household finances, making stuffed animals and charms. It might not be much compared to my husband's high salary. But I kept continuing with this small side job, hoping to at least treat Yosef to some nice meals. Our apartment becomes a weekend retreat for my niece Yara. Yara, my sister Megan's daughter, works in admin at a small trading company. She had a reason for her frequent visits. And that was to support a budding idol group.
Did you see Trevor on TV the other day? He looked so cool.
Yara arrived, fanning herself with a paper fan bearing a young man's face. Trevor, the man on the fan, is the leader of that idol group. They perform regularly at a club near our apartment every weekend, which is why Yara often stays over. Yara, your collection seems to have grown again, hasn't it? Each time Yara visited, her belongings in our room increased.
I mean, come on. When new merchandise comes out, I just have to have it. Plus, Trevor is the most popular, so it sells out right away.
I couldn't help but smile wryly at my niece's excitement before a performance. I understand the joy of buying your favorite idol's merchandise. I used to collect records of my favorite singers. But I wondered why she felt the need to bring all her new purchases to our house. Isn't it hard to carry all that around?
It's fine. I'll just store my stuff here.
Yara nonchalantly placed her bags in the corner of our bedroom. It's just me and my husband, so we don't have much space, you know. Ah, come on. It's fine. Uncle just comes home to sleep, right? Resigned, I had no choice but to accept my niece's whims. Oh, and I almost forgot. Mom made me bring this. With that, Yara pulled out a set of premium tea from her bag. My sister Megan and her husband occasionally sent gifts, and always made sure Yara brought something with her whenever she stayed over. Oh my, they didn't need to. After graduating high school, Megan worked far away until she was 30, then took over the family's variety store and married Kevin, an employee there. Since a large shopping center opened nearby, their business has suffered. So I always told her there's no need for such gifts. I'm sorry Yara's been such a bother. Megan would apologize over the phone, sounding guilty. However, Yara herself has become hard to ignore lately. She began entering our house even when we weren't home. It turns out Yosef has given her a spare key. She's here every week, might as well have one. Yosef had a soft spot for her.
Uncle, you're the best.
Yara would hug Yosef's arm, and he'd smile proudly. All right then. At first, I tried to be accommodating. But, 3 months later, a cash-filled envelope I kept in my bedroom drawer was missing.
When I asked Yara, she nonchalantly replied, "Sorry, Aunt Kayla. I borrowed it. I really wanted Trevor's new merchandise."
She looked at me with pleading eyes, but Yara has a job. She should be making enough to get by. Wouldn't buying it with your own money bring you more joy? Of course, I want to. But my salary isn't enough. Her casual words weighed on me. How much is she spending on this obsession? But it wasn't just about money. I noticed my skincare products were running out unusually fast. Since Yosef never used them, it had to be Yara. Confronted, she admitted it without hesitation. Sorry, Aunt Kayla. I just thought I'd use them since they were there. What did she mean since they were there? That cream was expensive. I frowned, and Yara pretended to shiver and rub her arms. Aunt Kayla, you're scary. Then Yosef would join in and laugh beside Yara. Come on, it's not a big deal.
Don't laugh, you should be scolding her.
Don't get mad. You look older when you frown like that. Yosef, usually not much of a joker, becomes chatty around Yara. I found particularly displeasing. Anyway, I don't want you using our things without permission. You have a job, so buy your own stuff. If you continue using mine, I won't let you stay over again. I'll make sure your mom knows that too. When I lectured Yara, Yosef turned red and shouted.
Enough already. The things you use aren't even earned by you, are they? I'm the one who's worked for all of it. I'm not living in luxury. I've been cutting corners, managing with what we have. I'm not splurging on hobbies like Yara. It's my money, I earned it. If I say Yara can use it, then she can use it however she wants.
Yosef's yelling made me want to cry. True, most of our income was from Yosef's work, so I couldn't argue further. Feeling abandoned with Yosef not on my side, I almost called Megan but stopped and put my phone away. Megan and her husband must be preoccupied with their struggling store. Complaining about my husband would just cause them unnecessary worry. Marital issues should be resolved between us. Days passed as I kept my concerns to myself. It was one cold Sunday morning during winter. A friend from my student days invited me out, so I decided to wear a fur coat I had never worn since purchase. I told Yosef about it beforehand. I plan to be back by evening, but if I'm late, could you start dinner? Just reheat yesterday's leftovers in the microwave. Don't worry about me. Take your time and enjoy yourself. He said, so smiling as he saw me off. Yosef, who usually belittles me in front of his subordinates, was kind and considerate when it was just us. I felt genuinely happy to be married to him. But as I arrived at the station, my friend called to cancel. Sorry. My husband's thrown out his back and can't move. I hate to do this, but can we reschedule? That's okay. Next time, you're treating me to fancy French cuisine. After jokingly dismissing my friend's repeated apologies over the phone, I wondered what to do, trying to come up with a plan for the day, but nothing particular came to mind. There's nothing else to do, I guess I'll go back home to Yosef. I stopped at the supermarket to pick up ingredients for lunch, thinking of making a warm stew for Yosef. As I opened the door, I was hit by a wave of heat and a scent of strong perfume. I noticed Yara's coat, a common sight on weekends. Yara, are you here? No answer. No one was in the living room. Strange, where could they be? I could sense someone was home, so they hadn't gone out. I stored the groceries and decided to look around the apartment. I could hear Yosef snoring from the bedroom. Was he taking a nap this early? I didn't understand much about Yosef's job, but being an executive must be tough during the week. So, I thought to let him rest on his rare day off. When I opened the bedroom door to see Yosef, I was met with a shocking sight. On our bed, usually shared by Yosef and me, lay Yosef and Yara, both naked and asleep. They were unaware of my return, lost in deep slumber. Yosef. I called out in a faint voice. More than anger, I felt a profound disappointment in my husband. After calling a few times, Yosef finally opened his heavy eyelids. Kayla? You're back early. He seemed groggy and closed his eyes again.
Yara, I'm home.
Yara, stretching and slowly sitting up, noticed me and shook Yosef to wake him up.
Uncle, wake up. We got caught.
She spoke with a mischievous grin, like a child found while playing hide and seek. Yosef sat up lazily, sighing, "So, we're caught, huh?" and yawned nonchalantly. What's the meaning of this? Confronted with this betrayal, I even forgot to express my anger. Well, as you see, we're involved, that's all. Both of you, get dressed right now. Surprisingly calm, I instructed the two. 2 hours later, my husband's parents and Megan's family arrived at my request. Sorry, Megan, Kevin, to bother you at this busy time. Don't worry about us. This is a serious matter. Megan comforted me, casting a cold glare at Yosef and Yara.
What is the meaning of this? Explain yourself.
She scolded at Yara, who only sighed and avoided eye contact. And to my surprise, she was checking the latest idol group updates on her phone.
This is not the time for that.
Megan scolded, snatching the phone away. Yara just clicked her tongue. Kayla, I'm so sorry for what our foolish son has done. Emily, my mother-in-law, tearfully apologized. Both in-laws were over 80, and it must have been hard for them to come in this cold.
Do we really need to drag these old folks into this?
Yosef complained. John, my father-in-law, slammed the table.
Do you have no sense of responsibility? Yosef, after such a terrible betrayal to Kayla. You're unbelievable,
Emily said in dismay.
Yosef, how could this happen? Can you give me a satisfying explanation?
No need to explain. Any man would prefer a young and cute girl like Yara over an old lady like her, right?
As a man, I'm ashamed of you,
John shouted at Yosef, who showed no remorse, his face turning red with anger.
Yara is no better. How could you hurt Kayla, who's always been so kind to you? Where did we go wrong?
Kevin, usually quiet, sighed in dismay. It wasn't Aunt Kayla who took care of me, it was Uncle Yosef. He buys me whatever I want. He even lets me use all the cosmetics and bags in this house. So different from Aunt Kayla, who's so petty.
Yara, apologize to Kayla.
No way. Why should I apologize to her? I don't need an apology. Even if you did, it wouldn't repair my relationship with Yosef. I spoke calmly. I reflected on the 30 years I had devoted to Yosef, enduring his belittling behavior because I believed he loved me. But his betrayal shattered everything I had held dear. Let's get a divorce. There's no other option. Is that what you want, Kayla? Megan asked, and I nodded firmly.
Thanks, Kayla. Now we can marry openly,
Yosef said, hugging Yara. They gazed at each other, unconcerned about the family's presence. On the way here, Dad and I decided, if you showed no remorse, we would disown you today. Megan said to Yara, her voice tinged with anger and sadness.
That's fine. I don't need you guys anymore. I have Uncle Yosef now. Then it's decided. Don't ever cross our doorstep again,
Kevin declared firmly. Yosef, we too have decided to disown you today. Megan's family and my in-laws apologized to me before leaving in a somber mood. Afterward, my divorce from Yosef was finalized. The divorce mediation, handled by lawyers, granted me compensation from both Yosef and Yara. Yosef, not wanting to burden Yara, paid both their shares in full. Within a month of our divorce, Yosef remarried Yara. I'm an executive at a major trading company. I can afford it. You can have all the marital assets, Yosef boasted, relinquishing his shared property. Despite his pride, he seemed to be struggling financially after paying both settlements. But he was a stranger to me now, so I focused on moving forward. I returned to my family home and began helping at Megan's variety store. Both my elderly parents were in a care facility. I took over the shop when Megan and her husband visited them. Sorry for always making you help out. It's me who should be grateful. I can't expect to be fed without doing anything. Megan and her husband always looked out for me after what I had gone through. Mostly out of concern for the mistake their daughter had made. Their feelings were so apparent that I felt more apologetic than they did. That summer, 3 years after I had returned home, Yosef and Yara unexpectedly appeared before me.
Why are you here?
I was stunned to see them smiling as they entered the shop.
It's been a while, Aunt Kayla.
Yara greeted, holding a newborn baby in her arms. Seeing the baby, I was at a loss for words. Since Yara was holding the child, it must be her baby. That would mean the father is, of course, Yosef. Seeing my speechlessness, Yara wore a triumphant smile.
I did what you could never do for Yosef,
she said, playing with the baby. She now called Yosef by his name, not uncle anymore. That reality shook me deeply. Then Megan and her husband returned.
What are you doing here after all this time? Is that how you greet your daughter who's just returned home after 3 years?
Yara retorted, showing off the baby.
Look, Mom. Our child, Amelia. She's your first grandchild.
Indeed. Congratulations. Megan replied emotionlessly, avoiding her daughter's gaze. Yara turned to me, smiling.
I came to announce the birth of my daughter. Celebrate with us, Aunt Kayla. Say hello to Amelia. Enough. What on earth are you thinking? Have you considered Kayla's feelings?
Kevin raised his voice, uncharacteristically angry.
Doesn't she look adorable, just like Yara? I bet she'll be a model or an actress someday,
Yosef said lazily. Megan, unable to bear it, grabbed a broom to chase them away.
Leave now. This isn't your place. You're disrupting our business, so go away.
Time to leave. We've boasted enough happiness to the lonely, single Kayla. It's a quite satisfying day today, Yosef said, exchanging a conniving smile with Yara. What did they think of children? Using a child as a tool to flaunt and bask in their superiority? As I sadly watched the baby in Yara's arms, I realized something. Wait, this child.
What is it? You're looking serious, all of a sudden,
Yosef asked, puzzled. I suddenly found the situation amusing and started to chuckle.
What's with the sudden laughter? Something wrong? Looks like Aunt Kayla's gone crazy from the shock.
Gently stroking the baby's cheek, I replied.
Like an angel, but her skin. Her skin? What about it?
It looks so healthy. A beautiful tan, unlike Yosef's fair skin. Indeed, the baby's skin was a stark contrast to Yosef's paleness.
What's wrong with that? None of my family or relatives have such tan skin. Is that strange? There are people in the world with tan skin. Oh, Yara once mentioned her great-grandfather was tan. That's genetics, right?
Yosef said, acting knowledgeable. At that moment, my suspicions about Yara turned into certainty.
That's impossible. What do you mean, impossible?
Yosef questioned, suddenly anxious. I fetched an old family album from a closet in the room my grandparents used to use.
Here, something I want you to see.
Saying this, I showed a photo from the album.
It's just a regular family photo.
In the photo were me, Megan, our parents, and grandparents. It was taken in front of the store when my parents first started their variety store.
This tall man on the right is my grandfather, Yara's great-grandfather.
So?
It's just a normal family photo. Don't you see? Look at my grandfather's skin. Fair-skinned, so what? That's normal, right?
Yosef seemed to not grasp the reality. While he was confused, Yara's face turned pale. Enough.
Amelia needs her milk.
Let's go, Yara urged, tugging at Yosef's shirt. Unaware of the truth, Yosef started to leave, so I gave him another hint.
There's no one with tan skin in my family, not just my grandfather. No relatives either. Wait, does that mean?
Finally, Yosef seemed to understand what I was implying. That means the likelihood of you two having a tan child is 0. I said emphatically. Yosef started shaking. It's a waste of time being here. Let's go home. Yara hurried him, but Yosef, now understanding, didn't move. He turned to Yara, questioning her sternly.
What's this about? Our child shouldn't be tan. Then whose child is this?
There's something else I want you to see. I snatched Trevor's keychain from Yara's bag and showed it to Yosef. Trevor, known for being half Hispanic and half American, publicly acknowledged his mixed heritage. Yara had always admired Trevor's mixed heritage, often praising his appearance as cool. This guy. He has the same skin color as Amelia. Yara, initially frightened, quickly turned defiant and laughed.
Oops, looks like I got caught. That's right. Amelia isn't your child. She's mine and Trevor's. I seduced him, and he fell for me immediately.
Yara boastfully recounted her affair with Trevor.
You've been deceiving me?
Seriously, did you think a young and cute girl like me would be into an old guy like you? Hilarious. I approached you because you're an executive and seemed wealthy. With your money, I could buy lots of Trevor's merch and win him over.
So, I was just an ATM to you.
Yosef realized the truth and erupted in anger. Of course. I endured it for the money. Who would willingly share a bed with an old man like you? I let you live in a dream for 3 years. You should thank me.
What did you say?
Megan, my husband, and I were stunned as Yara and Yosef argued.
Enough, both of you. The baby is crying. Can't you hear her?
Megan shouted, stopping their quarrel.
I can't stand this anymore. You're not family, just strangers. Leave now.
Megan ushered Yara and Yosef out. Poor Amelia. That was my honest thought. 2 months later, Yosef visited me alone. Suddenly bowing deeply, he shamelessly begged, "Please, Kayla, give me another chance. I did a DNA test. There's no blood relation between me and Amelia. I was deceived."
Oh, really?
And?
I couldn't forgive Yara and Trevor for conspiring to make me raise their child. I stormed into Trevor's dressing room at a concert and demanded compensation.
Oh my. How challenging for you. I humored him, though I was indifferent. I had already learned about the scandal from the TV and magazines. Trevor impregnated a married fan and let the husband raise the child as his own. This scandal became widely known, bringing national attention to the obscure idol group. Facing nationwide criticism, Trevor's agency couldn't defend him and ended his contract, as reported by tabloid TV.
I saw it on TV. They're responsible for their actions. Right? They're terrible.
Yosef laughed, thinking I was agreeing with him. Moreover, the tabloids, not easing their investigative efforts, ruthlessly delved into the life of Trevor's partner, Yara. Astonishingly, it was revealed that Yara had been physically involved with multiple men besides Trevor, earning money from them. Apparently, her goal was to financially support Trevor. You see? I'm just another victim deceived by them. So please, let's start over again. I decline. As Yosef tearfully begged, I replied emotionlessly. I called Kevin from the back of the store to escort Yosef out.
If you keep bothering Kayla, we'll call the police.
Kevin's firm warning sent Yosef away, dejected. A month passed. Though the media frenzy had subsided, reports about Trevor and Yara continued. Trevor, ousted from the group, was reportedly exploiting Yara for money. Yara started working at a nightclub to make ends meet. Raising a child was proving difficult for Yara and her strained finances. In the end, feeling sorry for Amelia, Megan and her husband decided to take her in and raise her.
There's been a lot, but she's still our granddaughter.
That's right. The child is innocent. The couple cared for Amelia while managing their store. As for me, I left home to fulfill my dream of opening a sewing class. I couldn't just keep relying on Megan and her husband forever. Megan told me I could stay as long as I wanted, but when I mentioned that I had things I wanted to do, she happily encouraged me to pursue them. Amelia's first birthday was approaching. What should I gift her? Partially to see Amelia and partially to visit Megan and her husband, I still occasionally stop by the family store.